Let's just begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, great. So welcome everyone that's in attendance today. I'll start by taking just a quick roll call. In attendance today, we have Supervisor Geppert, Supervisor Banks, Supervisor Tinkle, and Supervisor Welsh. Online, we have Supervisor Guy. So if I can just start with a motion to accept.
Make the motion to accept.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. In addition, we have District Council, District Manager, and I would assume we have District Engineer on the line.
Yes, sir. Stephen here.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Bloom may be on the line. Chris, is he on the line? Stephen?
Stephen, are you there?
Stephen Bloom?
I don't see him yet, but he will be.
Okay, so we will have Infomart representation here today as well. So we will start with public comments.
And
Chris?
Okay, and I have 7 speakers today, which is a new record. And we also have 17 people online, which is a new record. So, and first up, Joe McCulka, and I'm calling them in the order I have them. And we also put a chat out in case anyone online wanted to speak, to send me their name, and we'll add them to the list in the order it was received.
First thing, so don't forget to ask, we have on your agenda a vote and discussion about approving our new security contractor. And I was wondering, right now it's on the schedule for 4:30, and it looks like you got a hell of a schedule here. I was wondering if that's going to be a quick thing, if we can move that up. I would appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
On the other subject, and needless to say, I'm sure it's a big surprise, I have a question about the budget. And I have emailed all of you. I didn't get it out until around noontime today, so you probably haven't seen it. But in that is, we have a suggestion of how to adjust the payroll for, or the allocation of time for staff and how much is charged the 004 account. I write a brief justification for our philosophy and point of view on that. I also have numbers in there, what we think can be reasonable. It is a double of what we paid last year. It's just not 3.5 times what we paid last year. Beyond that, the issue, and I've said it before, comes down to, and I didn't want to tie you up with a lot of discussion, comes down to the actual incremental time that is spent on some specific items that Gateway owns in our community. And that is the management of the roads, the sidewalk, and the gatehouse. And the amount of time that staff pays on that, or spends on that, we are, I think we're in pretty good position. We did have a discussion at our Gateway Advisory Committee, the Stony Brook's committee, yesterday, and came to a consensus, and that's where the suggestion comes from that we are making to the board. I know you won't be discussing it right now, but I just want to get it started. Please take a look at the email, and if you have any questions for me, my email is there. You can respond, and I will respond quickly to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Joe, did you look at timesheets, or better yet, probably Chris, do we have timesheets that when staff is working at Stony Brook, and for that matter, any place else, to where it would not be an 001 or an 002 account item?
No, we don't track time.
So we don't keep any track of time. So
we could.
that, I'm sorry.
We could in the future.
Most people do, but anyway, yeah. The issue is what was is yours just what you perceived as being the hours done, if there wasn't any time
No,
sheets?
well, actually, we did ask some of the people.
Okay.
Okay, and it comes down to everything's an approximation. It is estimate, but keep in mind, Ed, just like you do, we do pay for staff through the 001 fund. And this is an addition to that, that's all.
And that came out earlier today?
Yeah, earlier today,
I
not
missed
early
it.
though,
I missed
because
it.
we just discussed this and came up with this yesterday, late in the afternoon. and I needed to, go over it and formulate it.
And this was staff only?
Staff on, everything else has been proposed that we're done with, and I believe it has been recommended and accepted. I haven't seen your budget yet that you have in front of you today, but I think we're good there. This is the only issue with staff, really.
And I think from my perspective, Joe, it would be, the administrative fees and staff is appropriately allocated. It's distributed. But the additional is based on, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, is based on the additional areas that the district owns / manages, which is above and beyond what other HOAs would have. Now, the question that I would say is how much additional time is spent managing those? And is the amount that we have today, is it justifiable? And there's two things we could do. We could either adjust it to what we think is more appropriate, or which means here's what we think the hours are going to be based on estimation, and that's what it is. Or we could go through more of a per diem type environment where we bill you back for the hours that are actually spent. Now, those should equal out, but I'm sure based on what I've heard, we don't have proper documentation to really say with a high degree of confidence what those hours are today. So we would have to create a baseline. So I think, Joe, what I would just propose back to Stony Brook, and we could probably look at the numbers to see if there's one that's more advantageous than the other. If you think management will either decrease or the need for that would decrease, and so you'd probably want to go on a bill back basis, or if it's just an amount that would be over and above the standard, because there would be, I would imagine, there would be some additional oversight because of what we own versus other HOA environments. But I think we just need to kind of come to terms of what's fair and equitable. We use that term quite a bit.
Or the other way of doing it is like most people do. We'll base it on an estimate, and we keep track of time. Labor, materials, overhead, equipment, profit, and all, and then adjust it at the end of the year.
Labor and materials, for the most things, we pay for. If it's a repair done to a road, a sidewalk, or anything else, that's in the 004 budget. And we have line items to cover that. This is specifically only for staff. Is there an issue? And staff.
So any equipment.
It's the additional management that we have, that we provide.
It's only staff. Okay. And I
Let
think when you read it, and you'll understand.
It makes perfect sense to me. If we feel like that amount is above and beyond what is being leveraged today, I don't think the board's gonna have any problem making those adjustments. But there's a difference between what you pay in 001 and 004, because that's services that are rendered above and beyond what everyone else.
And there is no question about that.
And what you're just doing is we're sending back to 001 base for distribution to all that component or portion you feel is overcharged.
Yes.
Yeah.
Essentially, well, we're looking for a reduction in the charge for staff.
That's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank
And
you.
is there, while you're up here, is there any, well, I guess we can wait to the item of so we'll wait and have you come back up with it.
I don't know if we want to discuss it right now.
Yeah, we'll wait, because I'll pull it.
You can move it up on
Yeah, we'll pull it forward, then you can have an opportunity.
Thank you.
Hey, next speaker, Margaret Feinberg. Welcome back.
Hello.
Hello.
Margaret Feinberg, Stony Brook at Gateway, and I am representing myself today. I, of course, got the same thing in the mail that everyone else did on the budget with the increase of 103%. And I will give the board credit that it appears that you have managed to come down, let's see, with different iterations to 94%, 84%, 71%, and the latest and greatest one that I saw that was back there is 66.72%. I went through the budget line items, and my biggest concerns came with large increases in line items where you're not even projected to use the budget for fiscal year 2021. You're not even projected to use that budget amount, yet you're increasing the 2022 budget by a lot. And those things really add up quickly. Just for instance, lake maintenance, budget for 21 was $260,000. You're projected to use only $164,000 of that this year, but you've increased it to 215,
When you say this year, you talk about 21 or 22?
21. And there's only one line item that I didn't have an issue with that you actually went over budget. You're projected to go over budget for 2021. But here's another one. Your budget for stormwater system pipe and catch basin cleaning for 21 was $400,000. You're only projecting to use 186,000 of that. Yet you increased the 22 budget to 500,000. If you're not even able to use this year's budget, how do you justify increasing next year's budget?
Because we didn't do our job.
And so you're increasing it with the hope that you're going to be able to do all this work that you've increased the
Because
budget
people
for.
want water in their yards, in their houses.
Well, this is.
That's where we're at,
But it's
Margaret.
still-
That's the problem we've
under-
got. I would agree with you on one thing, though. And this issue of if we've got anticipated, let's say $500,000 for an item
Mhm.
that we would put in, and it's a capital reserve, and it can be debt financed for 20 years. If that 500,000 isn't going to be spent in 22, which means the debt is not going to incur in 22, which means the P&I is not going to be in 22, which means the revenue isn't going to be needed in 22.
Correct.
We need to have a vision for redoing that schedule. But if that money, keep in mind, if we got $500,000 and we can take bids and get a lower price per unit and do more work at a lower price, it would behoove us to bid it all and tie it up before the costs go up and inflation gets it. That's a decision that in my opinion, we haven't done yet, but that needs to be done because that will have a significant impact on reducing that rate for 22.
There's was six specific line items that were of the greatest concern to me. And if you don't have the manpower and the ability to use the budget that you budgeted for 2021, there's no way you can increase that budget with the hopes that you're going to be able to use it in 2022.
That boils down as to whether it's manpower or contract labor.
And I did see where there's a number of new iterations of the budget, and one of them actually does lower it to, I think, a 10% increase. Let me see if I can find that real quick.
And I'd like to, Margaret, if you want to send that to us, I'd be happy to respond line item by line item, but that projection really for the stormwater cleaning isn't accurate because the contract's already been let to spend all those funds.
Well, you're projected in your budget, says you're not.
Well, they're projecting by what we've spent, but the contract's been let, so until the Procurify and that is billed, then it would be reflected in the financials.
So that's a good point to call out there. So if there's a projected, the projected is year-to-date spend. It doesn't specify whether contracts or allocation is in flight and will occur. Would that be, well, it doesn't matter if it's prior to budget year end or not, because you can still have projects overlap the next fiscal year, but still funded for the.
Well, and that contractor's out there working right now, and again, the Procurify will occupy those funds, but it won't reflect in the financials. They're just projecting what we spent to date, and they didn't really get started till dry season or what. So I could respond to each one of those.
But your stance is still valid.
Right, I mean.
It's still, you still make a valid point.
Projected should be what you anticipate using
There's,
to the end
it
of
should
the
be
fiscal year.
projected versus actual.
Yes.
You know, there's different things. So
You also
that's,
have a problem with billing. You see the professional services, I see the here. They'll wait till the last 2 months of the year, and because of taxes, they don't put in a bill. And then come January 1 of the next year, you get your budget all knocked filter because they put it in. Contractors do the same thing. So you got to watch doing this stuff. These guys can have the contract, they can incur the cost, but they don't send the invoice till 1/1 of the year.
so Margaret, I'll let you finish. I'm sure you got some other items.
There's just I remember the discussions when I was on the board of not even wanting to go to a 10 or 12% increase. So when the shock that hit me with the 103 and the 71% and some of these are lower. There's a 17% with no loan and a 25% and a 28%. And I hope that you're really seriously going to look at some of these lower increases, because even 66% is a heck of an increase for everybody in this community. And I just don't see how the district has the manpower and the ability to do all the projects that are stuffed into this budget.
I do have one question. So besides the lake maintenance and the store water cleanup, what are the other food items that you had issues with?
That one was water quality testing. I was surprised to see that in there at 50,000, because I thought that we were able to get that done for nothing.
No.
Yeah, so there's some
Yeah,
additional
isn't it?
testing that
Yeah.
we need that's not covered under the
Yeah.
free.
Well, we
but
don't
it's-
get anything for free.
It goes
Nothing.
Not
from,
anymore.
it
Yeah,
goes from
since
20
years.
to 50.
More testing, more ponds.
And it's related to the pond bank standards. So we can respond to those item by item. We have 7 people here to speak today. We're already
Yeah.
behind, so.
So what if,
So I will send those to you. The
Okay.
other one, just real quickly, was the pond bank annual maintenance, and there's lake maintenance and pond bank maintenance. I wasn't sure the difference between those two, and littoral maintenance, and then littoral maintenance in excess of the DO. I don't understand why we've got two. Those were the 6. So I would urge all of my past fellow board members and new members to really seriously consider not increasing this budget by that high a double digits.
Thank you, Mark. Good seeing you.
I'm saying.
Vince Lafredo? Bluestone Circle.
Good afternoon, everybody. I haven't been here since before the COVID, and I just wanted to say I wanted to keep everybody safe in the meantime. And I didn't last year have a chance to talk to this board. I think the term used by Chris 4 years ago when we had the flooding in Stony Brook and the hurricane hit was that it was a 100-year event. And this pandemic in the last year was a 100-year event. And I was shocked that the board would come up with a new method of taxing our communities in a year where there was a lot of hardship for a number of people. And I just felt it was pretty slick to do it. Hate to use that adjective, but it's the way I felt. And that was my non-agenda item comment. The other is in looking at this fiscal 2022 budget and the massive increases, and I'm only speaking for myself here as a resident. I can tell you my neighbors are getting more and more irate every day. When we look at these numbers, and they tend not to, and you look at line items, and I'm looking at specific line items under Parks and Rec, and the dramatic increase in salaries there from 2019. You went from $13,220 to a budgeted $82,424 in this fiscal year. Landscaping in the soccer complex back here, it's over $270,000 in this budget. Is this a tournament field? That's all I'm going to ask you. This is a CDD. This is our government. We have layers of government here. We have an HOA. We have Lee County. Lee County has not increased their taxes as much as the CDD has in my personal life. The increases since 2014 have been over 44%. The inflation rate in that period nationally was about 13 to 14%.
And just to be clear, last year the increase was 6%. The year before that was 9%.
I
So
understand,
just to add,
but I'm giving you a 7-year trend.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're having the problem is because we didn't do our duties the last 20 years. That's why we're in this trouble.
And I say, when we're in this trouble, can we not, and just piggybacking on what Margaret said, find a way that there's fat in this budget to cut back? I think it came up last week at the president's meeting, and I got some notes from that, but I was curious about Lee County taking over Gateway Boulevard. And in this budget, how much infrastructure was put into Gateway Boulevard? How much was budgeted for the roads if Lee County's taking it over?
That doesn't have anything to do with the 001 account. That's the enterprise fund.
Okay, but if Lee County is taking over those roads out there, we had costs involved over the years, haven't we not?
Yeah.
With the roads, the
Yeah,
sidewalks?
They took over those roads and sidewalks several years ago. The issue that is at hand that's got everybody frustrated, in fact, I talked to the commissioner before I came over, is the issue that we spent $2.5 million, which was pursuant to the contract, that when the county decided to improve the road, all of those costs of improving the utilities or relocating utilities were ours. They were contractually ours. So that $2.5 million, there was nothing that we could do about that. Not a thing. Unless, and the commissioners offered it to us, we do nothing and we get nothing, and they leave the roads as is. They came right here and said right about where Joe's at and offered that right to us. If you want, we'll drop this whole thing, walk out the door, and we'll do nothing. Our option of wanting that stoplight or those stoplights fell to the bottom of the floor. They weren't going to do it. It was either you get the roundabouts or you get nothing. Pick your poison. And the contracts are very clear as to whose responsibility it is to do what. There's not much we can do about it.
Well, that's pretty much it. I just feel like in today's day and age, and you know as well as I, every economist that I'm reading about, we've got inflation coming. And being that I went through it in the late 70s, early 80s, I can tell you right now, these numbers aren't going to walk. And if you talk about a 66% increase in 1 year, it's just not going to go. That's all I'm
And I understand that. And that's one of the reasons I have been a proponent of get these things identified, get the ones that we need. For example, pumping stations, ponds, things that are imminent, we need. It's a safety issue. Get those done now before we wait 5 years, 4 years down the road and inflation eats us alive. Why are we doing that? If we can get 20-year financing, do it now. It's not one of those things that's going to go away. That's what I want to make sure everybody understands. And I've been telling everybody in Gateway Greens, this problem did not happen overnight. It's festered over 20 years, all with the attitude of what Margaret said. Oh, we got to keep the rates down. Well, it's admirable if you can keep the rates down and you can meet your requirements of running a utility. We didn't do it. We got a community here that's sitting with a 48-inch sewer that serves their community, 400 feet long, that is full of dirt and debris. Now, we can either take and suggest they all go to Home Depot and buy buckets, or we fix it. The fix is going to be $500,000. How do you handle that?
And
You
I'm gonna
can't kick
ask you-
that down the road.
I'm going to ask you a question. Gateway is one of the communities down here. Fort Myers is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. People look to Gateway. Everything I've read online, it's a recommended community. Real estate agents like to drive people over here. How transparent is this board in letting people know that are potential buyers that these type of increases are going to happen, and this is what the past?
Because
It's
we're
very-
talking.
That's a tough one.
Because we're talking about it.
Yeah.
If it had been like it's been in the past year, you wouldn't have been talking about this. We've known these issues for 20 years. We just didn't talk about them.
Well, and some of it too is not just the fact that there's maybe some maintenance was overlooked or some things were budgeted, not fixed on a regular basis. But we're also coming up on like a 30-year time period where there's just infrastructure that's just needing its shelf life. And unfortunately, we're at that time period. But we'll talk more about the details of the budget. And I mean, when we really talk about trimming fat, it's really not about that. It's more about prioritizing and planning. Because I think the staff's done a really good job of identifying things critical items that need to be taken care of. The question is prioritizing and planning. Is it something that we must do this year, must do next year, must do within 3 years? Because I don't think there's any items in the budget that are in there that if they could be pushed to 3 years out. So, but we're gonna have to make some very tough decisions, and it's gonna come down to dollars and priorities. And are we willing to take risk within this community? And Stony Brook's a great example. I live there. We had flooding all throughout that community as part of things that the board did 2 years ago, sewer cleanings, updating water stations. Now, we haven't had a 100-year event, but we did get a lot of rain this year, and there was not one bit of flooding in that Stony Brook area. So there's things that we have to do, but this board is completely aware of the increase that we sent out there, and we did it for a reason. We wanted people to understand the amount of work that needs to be addressed in this community. But I will tell you, we're going to have some very detailed conversations about getting that down as much as possible to what's palatable for the community, that also addresses any critical items and at the same time puts us in the least amount of risk for, irrigation failure, infrastructure failure, or things of that nature. So we understand what you're coming from. We've all gotten tons of emails that say 85, 100% is ridiculous. And I agree with it. I've got 4 kids. I'm sending one to college. I'm still paying cancer treatment. I'm right there with you. I can't afford to pay, double what we pay today. So
Let's put it out in perspective, another issue on this. And this is a problem that you run into when you're doing debt financing. Right now, we're looking at whether or not it's correct. I believe it is, but we're looking at $5 million. If we debt finance that $5 million for 20 years, the principal and interest on that's $325,000 a year. Okay. Let's say we should be able to go back to that budget and we trim $1 million. Okay. 20%. You've just lowered 325 by about $60,000. $60,000 on a $6 million budget is like a flea on a you-know-what's butt. That's the challenge you got when you deal with these numbers and you start doing the debt. If we were looking at that 5 million and paying it cash this year and you took out $1 million, different story. 20% of 5 million is $1 million, not 60,000. So those are some of the problems that we have that we're up against. My whole deal is, and I've said it for years in running sewer organizations and water organizations, if you've got something that's got a 20-year life, why do you want to pay for it in 1 year or 5 year when the guy that comes in and moves into the community in the 6th or 7th year gets it for free? Everybody in this business debt finances to the service life of the equipment, which is typically 30 years. Some communities up north are between 30 and 40 years.
Yeah.
But that's what we're faced with. Then on top of that is the operation and maintenance cost. That's not debt finance. We can't do that. We have to pay for it. So salary staff or staff salaries, that's dollar for dollar. And you just start adding that stuff up and it gets big. This is where we got to get innovative on being able to define costs. Pond maintenance, good example. I think Margaret alluded to it, $500,000. My opinion is we go out and do this pond maintenance and we just took, and as far as I'm concerned, we injected another 20-year life into that pond. That's capital as far as I'm concerned, not operation and maintenance. We got it in the budget right now as operation and maintenance. Pull it out, put it over on the other side. We got to get innovative.
So any closing remarks, because we do have quite a few additional speakers.
No, I don't
Okay.
talk
Yeah,
that.
Ben, thanks,
I
Bill.
appreciate you listening.
And I'm gonna let-
Again, I'm just talking as one resident out here.
Completely understand. And
You aren't the only one.
And Vince, I happen to live in Pelican Reserve, but my mailbox has been jammed full too, as it should be because we represent everybody. But it got me very curious to look at not the percent of changes, but the actual dollars that has changed, comparing the two communities. I did a generic single family home in Gateway and a generic single family home, my home, over in Pelican. And the cost in Pelican have escalated from $384.90 when I started to this coming year is $1,207. Now that money is only for infrastructure, as Ed's been talking about, ponds, lake banks, aeration, all these kinds of things. And I was absolutely astounded when I was sitting in the audience for the last the board, whoever was here, and said, we want money for this, we want money for that, we're willing to raise our increase, our not ad valorem taxes, but we need these things to do it. And the board consistently approved everything we wanted to do because residents never came over here and complained. Okay, but the astounding part for me is they heard all this, and our communities are pretty comparable. They knew they had the same things. As a matter of fact, we only had 58 ponds, and we spend almost $1 million a year. You've got 85 ponds, and you're spending next to nothing. So, you know, it's kind of like that condo that collapsed over in Miami. If you don't do anything, something's going to occur. It's going to be catastrophic. We did get the board's attention when Irma came, all of us, Pelican and Gateway at all, but we still are not spending. When you look at it as a percentage basis, yeah, it's stark, it's terrible. But when you look at the dollars and you compare the two communities, even if we took the worst case scenario, you'd still be paying a third of what Pelican pays.
All I'll tell you is, it's disheartening when this audience isn't overflowing to me.
Well, I'm surprised at that too.
Really bothered, and I will tell you this, 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, is not cutting it with many of the residents in Stony Brook.
And that's been brought up before, and that's probably a good point we
And
want
I
to consider.
just thought I'd part-
We've talked about it for years.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, who's next?
Rod Senior. And I will mention, we do have a new record of 30 people online.
Yeah, that's good.
Mr.
Good
Senior?
afternoon, all. Good reference there, Bob. Thank you. Bad Irma, I agree. Okay, 2022 budget, 66% increase is unacceptable. I'm assuming that the board is in agreement that you're taking a serious look at a 20-year bond. Is that an agreement, or is that just something that's still on?
Yeah, it's part of our options.
Oh, yeah, I know it is, but I mean, have you agreed that that's the financing direction you're going in?
That's what the meeting's.
Yeah,
That's what
we
I
haven't
hope
gotten
we
to that
are.
point
Thank
yet.
you. Okay, is Stephen Bloom on the line, please?
Yes, he's online.
Great. I want to refer to Stephen. Generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP. All expenses incurred to bring an asset to a usable condition should be capitalized. And that includes third-party professional and consulting fees and repairs. Ed point. I agree with you, Ed. Stephen Bloom is our financial expert. Tony Pyers is our legal expert. We have a business analyst or a business manager on board. Now, she does project evaluation and analysis. I don't regard her as the same kind of financial expert as Stephen Bloom is. And I think that we need to ask Stephen Bloom to, and in some respects, Tony as well. Tony, we talked about this when I was on the board, more of a leadership position. We're paying them big bucks and we need them to lead, not just wait for the board to ask them questions. Now, bond financing. I've read this budget. I've looked at 8 items, which I regard as items that should be capitalized, and I would strongly urge you to ask Stephen Bloom to take the lead and say, yeah, they should and they could. Okay, 600 grand stormwater system repairs, 500 grand stormwater system pipe and catch basin cleaning, pond bank, annual maintenance, 225,000, bathymetric study, 150. Repairs to Parks and Rec, resurfacing basketball courts and the fun park, 100,000 bucks, capitalize it. $50,000 repairs to the swimming pool, capitalize it. $250,000 repair to the roadways, that's gutters to a, I was advised a meeting ago, gutters, capitalize it. $200,000 repairs to the sidewalk, capitalize it. Those 8 items add up to $2.075 million. The spend in version 3.3 is 6.076. You take away that 2.075 and you're reducing the spend in 2022 to $4 million. Here's the difference it makes to the P&L, to the, what you call the assessment. Okay, we're going to take $2 million out of it, and we're going to add it to the $5 million that you're going to borrow over 20 years. So you're now going to borrow $7 million. So the difference it makes to the debt service is $326,000 up to $455,000. That's $129,000 a year. If you take that into account, you're looking at a 10% increase for 2022. If you take that $2 million out of there, put it onto the 20-year bond, you've got something that's more acceptable to the concerns that have been raised today, that I'm raising as well. The last point I want to make today is about the survey that was recently put out about the park. I just want to say something about it, if I may. There was no perimeter fencing or access control technology costs included in that. I think there should be, but there wasn't. But you did add costs, which I think has caused widespread concern to a lot of people that I talk to. And to my knowledge, half of the people at least don't want anything, don't want any new facilities. I haven't seen the actual numbers. I'm hoping you're going to release them. I don't know anybody who wants to pay any increasing assessments for this proposed adventure of a park. To my knowledge, the vast majority of people who use the swimming pool are not in favor of paying an annual fee. And I think they should, if they want to use it, at least pay for the staff and the heating. And with that in mind, I would just ask the board, when you do finish up getting those survey results in, please be transparent and release them to the community in entirety. Get some transparency going and let the community know what position the board has taken as a result of those survey results. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rod, you
5 minutes.
you teased us a little bit. Steve, comments on what he said?
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah, you're a little faint, so if you could speak up, Stephen, please.
Yep. Is this better?
Little.
Not much.
How about now?
We're trying to adjust the volume on our side.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Is that better?
Yes.
No.
Now you got it.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'll kind of address them on a top level there, those comments. I don't disagree with anything I've heard. The only caveat that I will put there is each one of the projects mentioned in that list, I would have to see the details to make sure that, you know, there would be no disagreement with whether or not it's adding to the useful life. I heard, for example, the bathymetric report. I'm not sure that, you know, how that report would help, but, you know, I can certainly rely on staff for that. But again, from a top level, I don't disagree. Anything that is even close to being capitalized can be included in that. The bank so far, and, you know, I've provided them the list of projects so far that staff has given me. It equals, you know, the $5 million, but also includes some contingency in there as well to get to the $5 million. So anything, you know, that we can decide on that can be put towards capital and even, you know, even close to that, I am certainly in favor of doing that. Should the board choose. I'm sorry?
Who makes the call? It's not
Who
the
makes
bank.
the call?
It's
But
not
at the end of the day, yeah, at the end of the day, the bank has got to be comfortable that, you know, what you're doing is actually adding to the value of an asset. And just
But it-
throw out a very
And
extreme
that-
example
but
here.
it's our responsibility if our people that are writing the report that goes to the bond validation that indicates why you're doing it. So in other words,
Yeah.
it's a sell job.
No, well, I won't call it a sell job. I would just say, like you said in an earlier part of your statement, is the staff and the professionals are going to put together you know, an opinion that this is valid and submit it to the bank. And quite frankly, you know, unless there's an extreme situation, I've never seen where a bank has said no. I mean, you know, unless you say, hey, we want to pay for, you know, landscaping, mowing the lawn, you know, obviously that's not going to have any value to an asset. But other than that, you know, I think what I'm trying to say is I have not received any kickback or concern from the bank on anything we've provided so far. So I don't see why, if we needed to add to it, that there would be a concern.
Steve, I think I'm going to get to the real bottom line here. I think what Rod is saying is you're our professional. You tell us, hey, why didn't you put this in? Why didn't you put that in? I think that's the issue. We're not, Laura, this is over Laura's head, her pay grade. She doesn't know what she's doing here.
And I think
This is, I think, Steve, your job to be able to come back and say, hey, guys, you're missing the boat here. You could be going for 7 million, cutting these people's costs significantly and still solving the problem. So I'm really looking at you to come back and take this budget, take what we have discussed and come back and give us your best deal that, yes, this can be done. No, that can't be. This could be a little bit risky, whatever. But we got 2 weeks, man.
yeah, we
2
need to do
weeks.
that.
We haven't
need
got
to
a
do
lot
that
of
in,
time on this.
But you can't take an area like storm pipe cleaning and capitalize it, because that's
Yeah.
where you got to do that.
It's maintenance.
And again, I don't want to comment on each one of the lines because staff has already done this, and I would have to, you know, I'd want to get the list and go back through it again, because we have done these steps. We've had these discussions. We've gone back and forth and done this. So, you know, I think to answer the question again, cleaning and that type of stuff wouldn't apply. I don't believe the report would apply. Some of the other items mentioned are already included in some of the versions that we've done, meaning they've been pulled out already to be a part of the loan. So,
what I'm
you know,
saying, Steve, is I'd like to take, and if I have to, I'll do it myself. I want to go through that budget, every single line item, and put it into two categories, O&M or capital. If you come back and then say that this is
Thank you.
not capital or it's risky, I'll go along with that. You're the one that is the smart one.
Right.
But why have we gone down to the last frickin' minute to be doing something?
Okay, can I just call order really quick?
Thank you. I need to sit down. I just want to say thank you for giving me 5 minutes. We've heard Stephen. He doesn't seem to have much of a problem with the direction that I've suggested. And Bob, $1.1 million on stormwater cleaning and maintenance, and that's not an annual thing, right? We're not spending that every year.
We're going to be spending less than that, but significantly more than we've historically.
But if we have to inject that kind of big bucks now, we should capitalize it because it's lengthening the life of the asset.
I don't have a problem with what you're suggesting, as long as, you know, it's good and financial. But look at your community. In Pelican, we clean everything once every 5 years. That's our rotation.
You've done
cycle.
a better job. There's no question about it.
No,
You've done
I'm
a
not
better-
saying that, but it's
You
just
have.
in the operating maintenance, there needs to be a budget. I mean, that's what we've got Brian to do. But we're not going to spend 1 million in 1 year. We probably couldn't even do
I think
it.
you're both right.
We've got to get Stephen to give us a better leadership.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks, Roy. And what I would like for the
Thank
board
you.
to do is, as we're having the speakers come up, it's fine for us to ask questions, but I don't want to get into solutioning during public comments when we've got agenda items to
You're correct.
cover those. So listen,
We're making
everything we're
notes.
saying is important, it's valid.
We'll
Let's
make
just
notes.
push it back to when those discussions are. And Tony, you have.
Yeah, just one comment. I think what's important, Stephen and I had this discussion and some of the other staff have, what's important when you put together a financing team. And we've never really had that discussion yet. We get the engineer, you get the assessment consultant, you get the financial advisor, you get the Stevens of the world. And that's the discussion point as to what may qualify as capital projects that be capable of being debt service funded. For example, the engineering company may come back, Tetra Tech may say, bathymetric surveys are like surveys of real property when you're going to buy property. Might be like doing topographic survey. I'm just saying, they may say that when you're going to be doing a road, you need to have a topographic survey to do the road work. That's a conversation that we need to have as a group to get that guidance as a better guidance now. And the bank's going to need to have that when we go to do the borrowing and when we do the validation. So I think it's a team, typically it's a team approach.
But that's a good example on a capital kind of item. You do it once, you never do it again.
Yeah, Stephen, if I'm incorrect on that, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct. And again, it is, the engineer, you know, has to be involved in that discussion, because let's say that report is required to do another project that is capital related, then you can make the case that you can't have one without the other. Therefore, it should all be financed together. So
Yeah,
there are a lot of good ways of doing this, but I think to Tony's point and to some of the other points that are extremely valid, you know, you can't just be a financial perspective. It's got to be the combined team doing those final decisions. And I will certainly be able at the end of the day to say, you know, yay or nay when it comes to the bank side of it, but you need to have the full picture.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep moving.
Sure. Number 5, Judy Peak, Eagle Point.
Good afternoon, Judy Peak, Eagle Point. I just want to reiterate, this is an elected board. Your constituents have came before you. Please listen to them and their input. As Ed's famous words, kick the can down the road. They are things in this budget that can be kicked down the road. They are.
Can you identify them? I can't find them.
Well, a basketball court to
Oh,
me.
no, but I'm sorry, with the exception of Parks and Rec, because I totally agree with you. Parks and Rec need to go to zero.
Well, one other thing is trees. Those trees do not have to be replaced in 2022. They don't. That can be kicked down the road. There are other things we can look at that can be kicked down the road. I'm not saying our infrastructure. I am saying there are things in this budget that have clearly not been looked at closely. And
We need to do that.
that needs to be done.
Yep.
I appreciate the hard work y'all do. It's a thankless job, but please listen to your constituents. I feel like most of the people on this board will want to come back at some point. They want their job to be something they can be proud of. And as an elected official, it is very important to listen to the people who elected you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And next, Linda Summers, Mahogany Lane.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. This is my very first meeting. I've lived
Welcome.
in the community for a couple of years. What I've heard here today is you were not due diligent in your duties. That's what I've heard today.
You're
You're not
mentally
good.
observant.
You're not good stewards of the monies that have been provided to you. I
I
feel,
would disagree with that.
I feel as though I've also heard that there's a lot of frivolous spending that is outlined here. I agree with what was said, to channel it, to push it down the road, to possibly give us an opportunity to really dive in a little bit more as a community of what our needs are, to let you know what our needs are, not you so much needing to let us know what our needs are. It's great to present and say this needs to be taken care of, but put it in a priority. That's what I've heard today, and I'm not the only one speaking it. My last statement that I want to make is, why right now? This is an economy that we're all struggling in. We don't know from 1 minute to the next what's about to happen. Does it have to be done right now? That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Where did you say you lived?
Mahogany Run,
Oh, Mahogany Run. He said Mahogany Lane. I
That's
thought
all
we
right.
got a new
Sorry.
street in
Mahogany
the
Run.
community.
Gateway Greens.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Number 7, Andy Haygate, Barrington Way.
Good afternoon. Hampton Park. So this is the first meeting that I come to CDD. I came on years ago, right in the beginning. I lived in a gated community, 7 gated communities the last 25 years. I never, ever saw an increase of this amount percentage in my life. Previous one we lived, it was $1,200 a year CDD. Now it's 19. It's a golfing community with a restaurant, with a brand new pool, very nice place. So when I got this letter here, for me it was a shock. I really couldn't understand. And I'm sure all the gentlemen here and all the people that work very hard in this, you all salaried, I'm an income. If I don't deliver, I don't get paid. I'm a realtor. So I'm going to read part of the email that I sent you, July 27th. And that was, I came here, delivered personally. I'm just going to summarize it. This proposed budget increase is totally out of reality. I'm not going to go in numbers because we have people that are very well qualified here and went through them. Here's about the concept of the real estate market, what's happening. This lady mentioned that this past year, we went through some difficult points. We had COVID, loss of jobs, relocation, health issue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can fill a room with that. Very few people doubled their salary last year. Half of the people that live in these communities here are in fixed income, or they have money in the market. I work, I did pretty well, I do pretty well. But the fact is, when you get a CDD as a realtor and you bring people here, the price of the home is one thing. You can't go against that. They're beginning to decrease a bit. There's beginning to be a trend to control the prices. I bought a place in Babel Ranch. The small villa went up $100,000. I bought it a year ago. It's great for me, but I got a tenant there paying for me. So the issue here that was brought by everyone, the type of increase that you want proposed, 93.4, is absolute, and you can have all the reasons. And then my question is, what happened with all the CDDs previously? The boards that didn't do their work. And now we pay it all at once. So when you bring someone here, they look at the price of the home. Hampton Park, the homes there are probably $500,000 up. When I bought there a couple of years ago, it was 250, 220, 210. But when you bring people, they say, okay, I'll pay $500,000 for your home, but I won't pay $1,200 as a CDD for a place that doesn't offer that much. We are not Corkscrew. We are not Pelican Preserve, which is a separate community from us and offers a lot. If you get the communities here, what they're looking at is the infrastructure. I'm a swimmer. I swim in this pool here. When they told me that the 5.5 million budgets to redo that park, that's one of the most ridiculous things I've seen in my life. Because we know very well this economy can turn very, very quickly. I was here when we had foreclosures, short sales. I had investors coming from Asia in a bus. We would drive them around. We would show them how $30,000, $40,000 they would pick, and they would buy like that. We're not going there again. The market now is much stronger. We're not going to have a crash, but we're going to have a landing. And when the landing happens, people get away from places that were very expensive. Gateway is a nice community. Keep it the way it is. Don't start bumping up. If you want to bump a place, we have plenty of options in other areas. That's basically my summary in terms of what I think. I know you have all the reasons, and I know you discussed this and worked very hard on it. But going from 4.4 or 5% increase we had last year to 93, and you have an option here, which is version 4, which is a 24% increase. That's more or less the max I think you should go. You got to cut whatever you have. You can't get a room and get all the people that work in the CDD and say, okay, let's see which projects we could improve in the park. I want this, I want this, I want that. And then you get to 5.5 million. That's the other issue. Our HOA is going to go up to. So I just had a knee surgery, knee replacement. I'm in meds a bit, you can see, but obviously I'm in pain here, but I think we should have this room full. I'm really surprised that in Hampton Park, I see a couple of people here. This should be packed. I never saw a CDD going from 600 to 1,200 proposed. And when you get to the meeting 19, people say, no, we're going to discuss in the 19th. I said, no, you're not going to discuss. The 19th, the hammer's going to come down, and they're just going to say, this is what we're going to do. This is the meeting to bring it up. So you guys got to do your work. You get paid for it. You are our representative, like this lady mentioned. You want to be reelected. I'm reelected every day when I work with my clients. I'm in income. I'm in commission. My commission this year, my salary went double. My commission's cut by half. You know why? Because all the builders are cutting. Everyone is cutting costs, and we're going to put all this on the table and do it in 1 year. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
And our last speaker that we have on the list is online, Gateway Greens, Abu Shalin. And she's also spoken about trees previously.
Hello, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, hear you loud and clear.
Hi, I just wanted to give a quick public comment that I oppose the project for the park at this time. I second what others are saying, that I feel that the pandemic has put many families in a financial struggle. Building costs and materials are at an all-time high. Many materials are delayed. You cannot get them. And this entire development project should be tabled until the economy and families recover financially. I feel that many families are struggling just to pay their current financial responsibilities. They're receiving notices that their HOAs are also going up. So any unnecessary project is not at this point in the best interest of the community from a financial standpoint. I feel that focus should be on the management of the items that we currently do have before we add more to manage. I also feel that it's not acceptable to give residents a 50 to 100% increase in their yearly cost, with the reason being that you're saying that you weren't doing your job. That's being said by some of the board members, and that is not completing your responsibility to the community, and it's negligence. So I don't think that you should be stating comments like this as an elected official. So that's all I have to say, please.
Yeah, thank you. And just to be clear, anything that has to do with the new park project conversation is not in this budget. It would be at least 2 years before anything would hit the residents. And we're not talking about the park until, probably after this year's budget has been addressed, just because it's confusing. Most people think that the park has something to do with this budget. It doesn't. There's nothing in this budget that has to do with any type of park build out. There's no decision on the floor about that. That is just something that we're looking into. And it would at least take us 2 years to even break ground on that, and probably at least 2 years before, if anything got approved, that it would even hit any type of assessment.
Well, the big thing is right now is we need to get out on the street to the public the results of the survey.
Yeah, we're going to stop talking about the park until we completely finish the budget.
Well, I'm going to talk about it, Doug.
No,
I'm
Yeah,
gonna bring,
if I could just say one more thing, since I do get 5 minutes, I just have one more comment.
Budget. And
Um,
I'm not talking about the budget. I'm talking about the results of the
Okay.
survey.
All due respect. Chris, is that all the comments we have from?
Respectfully, I
Martha?
just want to finish my comment. If you, just one more minute. I agree with what Doug Banks is saying. And I think that many of the residents are confused by having the survey on the park go out at the same time as the budget. So I
Okay.
think if you could submit a comment, since there's so many that aren't on here, on the CDD Facebook page or the website, that these are two separate items. People are confused. So I think by moving the survey and the results of the survey until after you finalize the budget, it would be very helpful to, focus on one item. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And we have one last speaker is Jim Brand.
Good afternoon, Jim Brand, 10154 Avalon, Hampton Park. First of all, thank you, board, for what you do. I know sometimes it's a thankless job. I appreciate what you do very much. I'm a little bit confused. We got in the mail, I got email, a budget that showed a $1,300 increase year over year. And then I picked up a budget documents here today that one of them shows a 17% increase and the other one shows a 66% increase. Would you clarify which one is going to be the actual
We don't know yet.
proposed budget?
We don't know yet, because part of the process is we start the first phase with the high water mark. And then from that point to where August, what's the date, Chris?
19th.
August 19th is when we finalize the budget. The time between the first high water mark and the finalization is iterations of cutbacks, negotiation, funding discussion. So that's why we're here. And the reason why we put that high water mark up, again, I'll state, is to make sure that there's transparency to all the residents that we're coming to a point where there is a significant amount of items that need to be addressed that we deem critical. Now, the conversation is going to be on prioritization and planning, whether we need to do them this year, whether we push some 2 years, 3 years, do we pay for it all at once? Do we finance it over 20 years? So this is all part of the budgeting process. And this is a really great discussion. We knew that we would not be able to sit here, at least for more than a year or two, if you try to push an 85, 100% increase. But we did it deliberately so the residents could understand that there are significant items that are going to have to be addressed. And it was a great way for us to at least open the conversation so all you good people could come in and we could start having conversations on it.
So what you just said, I think, is it's going to be someplace between 17 and 66.
We're hoping to get it down as low as we can.
Well,
if we can get it comparable to years past, I think that would be ideal. The question is, what do we have to do to minimize risk? And, that's a decision we're going to have to make one way or the other. And residents' input has been very valuable. I know that there's a lot going on and no one wants to pay more in assessment. No one on this board wants to pay more money, but there is a cost benefit that we have to measure through.
So when I got the email about the budget, I responded, and the first word I said was tilt. Anybody ever played pinball? Tilt. The next thing is game over after you tilt. So I'm really concerned that this is such a significant change.
Everyone should be concerned with the amount that we're going to have to spend over the next couple of years in order to keep your streets from flooding, for your irrigation breaking down. Because I tell you, the one thing that's going to catch people's attention, if we don't pay attention to what we're doing and make changes, is when you go to turn on your irrigation and it doesn't work. And I guarantee there'll be 4 times more people in this room if your irrigation doesn't work and your grass goes brown.
Doug, you're speaking on my time. So
I'll give you that time back.
I know you like to talk, so please, I'm up
Be
here.
respectful, please.
It's my
Jim.
chance.
Be
It's
respectful.
my chance to
Be
talk.
respectful.
I am. So I said tilt, pinball. Next thing is game over. Lots of homeowners who's your constituents, we're retired. We're on Social Security. We may get an increase annually of 2 to 3% if we're lucky, up to the government. 2 to 3%. And you're proposing this kind of budget, doubling assessments, 17%, unacceptable. You or someone has lots of work to do to get that budget down to a reasonable number for those of us who are retired and on limited income. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. That's all the comments that we have online and people that have signed up, and we appreciate those comments and participation.
Okay, let's move into staff reports. We'll start with District Attorney.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the first item is an item for the board to adopt the meeting schedule for the upcoming fiscal year. This is by publishing these dates in the newspaper, it obviates the necessity for publishing each board meeting, and therefore you save the cost of doing that because the news press is not inexpensive. And so we have, the staff has put together the proposed meeting schedule. If the board wants to make any changes we can do that now, recognizing that during the course of the year, there may be additional meetings that you want to have, and we may need to separately advertise for those.
Move approval.
I have one. Well, I'll sec for discussion. I have just one question.
Second for discussion.
Well, yesterday at the Stony Brook Advisory Committee, you guys did talk about maybe moving the date and the time for your meeting. This is listed here too. If there's a possibility of.
We did, what we voted on to be the first one, the second one. Because the 8-day requirement to get into the board book was tough.
Okay, are you gonna still stick with the 3 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have.
The only question I had is that how many, we have typically only had a single meeting in December. We sticking to this, we might need it.
I think we keep
You can
it
always
in,
cancel
and then
it.
we
You
can
can
always cancel it.
Yeah, because if you decide on December 2nd, you want to have a meeting December 16th, then you have to pay to put an ad in the paper for the December 16th.
I'll second Bill's motion.
I think we probably already did.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
well, we have a second.
30.
I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Bobby, real quick, I
Wait.
misunderstood you. We did change the time to 2 o'clock. I thought-
Okay, that's what I thought, but I was like, okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Because I left a little early, okay. So then there's a,
Well, the way you try to characterize that, it says they generally meet at the following dates
okay,
and
well,
times.
all right.
And so then it says that their schedules can be viewed at the district website, so that provides that flexibility.
So I guess that'll be for you, Chris. Once we post this, we'll change it for the 2 o'clock because this needs an edit.
So the first Wednesday of each month at 2 PM,
Yes.
correct? Okay, I'll make that change
Okay.
before I send it to the news press. The next one is with
Wait a
regards,
minute, I have one other question.
Go ahead,
Yes, sir.
Bob.
A couple times I've heard now, concerned about the timing that you have the meeting. This doesn't reference the time, correct? Or it does? Oh, it does?
Mhm.
3
Yes.
o'clock. Are we ever going to have a discussion about changing
I
it
mean,
to a?
There's been a lot of discussion about moving it. I think one of the things to consider, if you push it, let's say after 5, I mean, that could impact some costs. And I mean, I'm open for whatever. It's actually more convenient for me to meet after 5 because I gotta leave work for it. But I don't know if we get any more participation than we get today by moving it maybe marginally, but I mean,
I have no idea and I don't care,
We've
but,
tried it in the past.
but
and
I
we
keep
don't
hearing
get any, people just don't show up. That's the
well,
problem.
they don't show up at 3 either.
Well, I
So it's no
understand-
worse.
I understand that, but the issue is that if you have something like we've got going right now, if I did anything, I would say that meeting on the 19th, we move that back to 5 or 6 o'clock.
it is,
But the regular meetings?
the budget hearing is at 6 that night.
6 o'clock. Okay.
Right, the regular meeting's at 3, the budget hearing's at 6, and I think the board did that.
you know, and I think what we continue to do is we make it easier for people to attend. You know, you can dial in through the web meeting. We make the recordings available. I mean, maybe we poll it.
I
Maybe we
don't
send
know
a
how
poll
much
out.
interest
I mean,
there is,
Send a
but
survey and see if more people would attend or if they would like to attend if it was, you know, at 5 o'clock or whatever.
Yeah, what
It
I'd
doesn't
like
matter
to
to
do
me.
is, this can be published in the paper, and then if the board later on changes the time it wants to meet, we can do it amended.
Yeah.
Meeting notice for the
The
year.
only reason I
Take care
brought
of
it up, Tony, is not to change this. I accept this, I want
Yeah.
this. But we ought to at least consider
We can definitely survey.
and do a
Just see if
survey.
there's, you know,
And the board can amend it.
If our time is inhibiting people from coming and they think they might come at another time, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8, whatever.
Or what the board want to do at a future meeting, discuss whether or not on an experimental basis, have a couple of meetings at a different time.
Alternate, try it.
Well, keep in mind, you go to 6 o'clock or anything
More
later
money.
than that, you're gonna be at 11 o'clock when you're out of here.
Well, that's true, but nevertheless,
We're used to that. We represent Everglades City and they sometimes.
and we've been
go to
averaging
midnight.
2-hour meetings. So,
we average to it. I must have missed that.
No, we've been averaging
3
2
hours.
I would not doubt him because I think he's keeping track.
We've been
Okay,
averaging 2 hours.
Thank you.
move
Okay,
on.
let's keep moving. But
We'll
under
publish it as
consideration,
is.
good point.
Yeah, we can
With
consider
the
it.
change for Stony Brook. Thank you. The next item for consideration is to get some clarification and direction with regards to the district manager's agreement. I've included in your agenda packet the comments and concerns expressed by Mr. Shoemaker with regards to it. And those, what I did, I boxed them into particular,
Killed a tree.
well, this is an electronic tree, so it was okay.
My thing is, let's get this over real quick. I move to make the changes as requested by District Manager Shoemaker. That was on my part and oversight
I agree.
on the review of the first contract.
Yeah, and I talked with Chris and Tony, and upon further review, I think it was an oversight. The language is just,
I'll second for discussion. How about that?
okay, second for discussion?
Yeah, no, you
Oh, okay, yeah. So I'm in agreement with that. I think it was the normal, it's pretty typical. Yeah, it's pretty typical, what he's asking for, so.
Yeah, and again, for the record, you can make differentiations, and it's a matter of law. It's not discriminatory on mine, but that's a board policy. And what I'd suggest then is if the board, let me go to the agenda page where those two areas, I think were bracketed I bracketed them. Chris put them in his 2 emails, just so it can be clear that that's the exhibit D, which is agenda page 46. And then after that is the agenda page 53. And to the board, the motion is to accept the suggested language and strike through the highlighted text, for example, on page 53. And then on page 46, I think we leave that alone, Chris. Is that correct or not? I think the changes you suggested in 53, do they address it?
It's fine.
Okay.
We're good? Yeah, so we have a.
And if not, we'll chat. We'll talk with the chair.
You have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. And nothing further unless there's some other items. I mean, nothing other than.
Yep, I think that's it.
Just
District Engineer, Stephen.
Are we losing?
He was here.
Stephen, is Tetra Tech on? Do we have him muted by any chance, Chris?
I don't think we have anybody muted.
Hey, you guys.
There he
Hi,
is.
Steve.
Hey, sorry about that. I was muted there. Good afternoon, Stephen Agapi, Tetra Tech. We've got 2 items on the agenda today. First up is a task authorization for your approval. It's for a Palazzo Road turnover. We've been working or talking with the president of the HOA over there, and he's taken a look at the scope and the fee, and they're comfortable paying that through whatever mechanism that's going to be. And they said go ahead and move forward with it. So as long as it's okay with you guys, we'll start on that. We've got time in there to review engineering documentation and any construction documentation that they have. We'll do field inspection, and we'll provide a report with any recommendations for improvements and the cost of those improvements. And the fee is $4,196.
Is this require motion to approve?
Well, yeah, Joe, you represent PPAC.
Yeah.
Is this what you want?
Yeah, I've been talking with President Mike, and he and his board have agreed to that price. And they would like to get started so we can keep this ball rolling.
So PPAC's in concurrence, okay.
Yeah, and there is a study that was done by Brian, for sure, in conjunction with the fellow that's doing the road studies in developing. That report has been released to me, and the has it. And we have determined that the best thing to do is wait till Tetra Tech gets their report done, and if Tony needs to review anything, that be done, and then we'll figure out what the next steps are.
Yeah, and Joe, I guess just for clarification, the Tetra Tech work would not involve the surveying and sketch and legal at the present time, just make sure the road is up to the county standards that.
As far as I understand,
because then otherwise you have the survey.
I don't know if Tetra Tech do the survey.
It-
We weren't intending to do a survey, no.
Could you do the survey if you were asked to or have that done?
We could do a survey.
Okay, I will, would you like to clarify that with Mike Lampier at that association, or have me get involved with it?
Okay, yeah, I can follow up after this call and we can do that.
Okay, Steve, if you would do that, and I'll just send him a note and remind him about the survey, and he can work it with you.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like we're ready to do anything.
I mean, we can move forward with this without the survey. I mean, it's
Agree.
whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah, you do what you can do, and if you would talk to Mike, and I'll follow up with him also, if the survey needs to be done, you can handle it, that would probably make it easier for him.
Okay.
Okay.
So it sounds like there could be something in addition, but that doesn't stop us from approving it. So we have a motion and a second. I'll call the vote. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. I'm going to hit this next piece, and then I'll pull Stony Brook forward. The Sun City bond certification.
Yep. So Danny had, I guess, tried to close this out a couple months back, and he thought it was closed out, and then someone had asked him to do another bond certification, which means it hasn't been closed out yet. So he went ahead and did that. But just so you all know, it's in the process of being closed out, as far as I know.
Okay, so no action today. That's just an awareness item, correct?
Correct. Unless Tony says otherwise.
Left in there? Because I know we did our best to spend it.
I have an accounting of it in my office. I can pull out and get to you right when we're complete here today.
Any items for engineering? Okay. Thank you.
All right, guys, I'm going to get offline if that's okay with you.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
All right, have a good evening.
Thank you. Before we get on to additional staff reports, I'm going to pull forward item 4A, the Stony Brook security contract with Statewide. So that's 4A. So I think if you've had a chance to review, basically Stony Brook is looking to change their security contractor. This is that contract that needs board approval in order for them to proceed. It is time sensitive. So Joe, if you want to get up and there's any specific intro into this.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
One second.
after Joe speaks, if I can just make
Sure,
a couple of
absolutely.
comments. Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, no problem. I anticipated that. Why Joe's here, the other Joe's here. I just want to say that, the last thing any community wants to do is change security companies and management companies. They're usually not good experiences. But we've been forced into a situation where we've had to sort of rush this one forward. We brought forward our board handled this and did the search, provided the information to us. Our committee reviewed it and was comfortable with it. We submitted it. And I know that Tony ran out one of his red line pens going over it. And
Keyboard.
oh, that's what it was. And we quickly, Joe Tarja reviewed and made those adjustments. And we're just looking for your rubber stamp approval to go forward. If you have any questions for Joe, he's here, or for me.
Who was your old company? Or the current company
Securitas.
you're moving?
Yeah.
Tony?
Mr. Chairman, if the board's action would be a part action, if the board's inclined, it would be to terminate the authorized staff to send a termination for convenience notice to Securitas, and then also see if they'd be willing to shorten the time. It's a 30-day for convenience termination.
One of the things I wanted to ask, and this is our president, Chris Capiello, asked me just yesterday, if they came to an agreement with Securitas, because I think Securitas wants out, to move forward, is that possible, and what would the procedure be for that?
That's what I was mentioning. Is that
Oh, I'm sorry.
I made the mistake of pausing while Mr. McCullough was
Yeah.
at the podium. No, I'm just kidding.
You know me by now, come on.
I'm not going to breathe anymore next time I do this. That the board needs to terminate the contract under the convenience. However, we can talk with Securitas about agreeing to a mutual termination, so that the effective date of this agreement, which is intended to be September 1st, can be the effective date. So the board would authorize staff to send a notice of termination and negotiate a termination agreement with Securitas And if the board's inclined to approve the contract, to approve the contract in the packet and authorize.
And I would imagine we have some pretty high confidence that the September 1st changeover, we won't have any issues with that.
I've been assured
Okay.
that he's ready to go.
Okay.
Joe has assured for the record, we won't say which one.
Joe, exactly.
Jim, did you go out for
We'll be
competitive-
ambiguous on that.
Did you go out for competitive bids? on-
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They sent out 6 RFPs and received 4, went over them, and our board, not our committee, did review them and interview.
This 3-year contract,
Yes.
Done with this?
it's second and third year fixed.
No, I believe there were small increases, but they are.
Okay, is it, I
locked.
didn't see, I saw this page, but I didn't see, typically the contract has all 3 years in it.
There was. I'm not sure what you're looking
I
at.
don't think it must not have got into the agreement that we got. I saw it was in 3-year contract, but I only saw 1 year of
Yeah,
defined
well, the
cost.
first year cost, and there's, I think, 3% increase the second year, I believe. And I think 3% on top of the 3% for the third year, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, typically that's in the
See,
agreement.
Joe, I actually do read these, see?
Yeah, the only thing
I know you.
but it's first year cost.
First year cost only is all I saw.
Yeah, that's all I got.
That's the only thing I.
I don't know why that is, because what we had was 3 years, and it was printed out.
Good enough. I mean,
Okay, so we got 2 parts. So the first is I need a motion to authorize staff to notify Securitas of termination for convenience within 30 days with the ability to negotiate a shorter
Mutual termination.
mutual separation.
I'll make that motion.
And I will say.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the second would be to accept the new security contract with statewide security effective September 1st.
I make that
Or,
motion.
or sooner if possible.
I think September 1st is the date on the contract. The reason I mentioned about the earlier termination of Securitas, it's a 30-day termination, so if it went out even today, it wouldn't be
It wouldn't
effective
have-
until
yeah.
September 3rd or 4th, so that's fine.
So any worst case scenario, there's overlap.
Okay.
So I have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any- Okay, great. You
All
got a new
done?
security company.
Thank you, I appreciate you moving this up.
Hold them to high standards. Or else we know where to find them.
Can't believe you didn't want to stick around, Joe. Joe, can't
Okay,
believe you
great.
don't
So
want to stay.
circling back to staff reports, district manager report. Chris?
Sure, and I'd like to start. We have Deputy Prescott here with the Lee County Sheriff's Office, and he had a brief presentation to make about plate reading technology.
Oh, great, yeah.
I'll tell you what, next time I come.
Next time I'm gonna have you stand right here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, somebody's have to separate you two.
We're like,
You ought to be around when we really get at it.
I got jokes. I appreciate you guys giving me a couple minutes. Just real quick, the reason why I'm here is Sheriff Carmine Marcino has started a huge initiative around the county, the Keep the Community Safe initiative. As part of what we're doing in that initiative is going to a lot of the gated communities or restricted access communities, and we're trying to get a push into LPRs, which are license plate readers. A lot of people know what LPRs are. You drive by them, they scan your license plate, and that data gets stored someplace, right? And a lot of gated communities or restricted access communities use that for internal security inside each one of their communities, right? Pretty simple, straightforward stuff. The technology that we have now in LPRs has come leaps and bounds over the last couple of years. Sheriff Marcino with Seize Drug Money has built an Arctic Center, which stands for the Real-Time Intelligence Center down at headquarters. $1.5 million facility, all paid for by drug seizure money. And with inside that facility, we have the ability to take the data from these new technology, the new technology of license plate readers, and we can see those license plate readers in real time. Now, as far as the push is going, we've got them out to several places all around Lee County right now. There's a ton of them in, a lot of the newer communities down south and things like that. So when we came to taking a look at the county, we're like, hey, where can we get the best advantage, the best look at the county, and the most use out of these LPRs? And obviously, we come back to Gateway. Gateway Boulevard and Griffin is a big access between the east side of the county, meaning Lehigh, and the west side, everybody going out there. As we know, Gateway is no stranger to car burglaries and crime and things like that. A vast, vast majority of the crimes that occur
meaning car burglaries, house burglaries, things like that, are all done with vehicles, right? And how do we find out who those vehicles are that are committing the crimes? We use LPRs, license plate readers. And I can get into 100 stories about how they benefit the community and all that. What we're trying to do is get the Gateway CDD to take a look at installing LPRs at the 3 main entrances of Gateway. Daniels at Gateway, State Road 82 at Gateway, and State Road 82 at Griffin. That would cover 95% of the cars coming in and out of the Gateway area. With the new technology, the sheriff's office monitors those cameras on a 24/7 basis. If a vehicle is reported stolen, if there's a crime reported, we have instant access to all those LPR cameras that we can follow and monitor that vehicle as it travels through the county. In addition to the LPR cameras that communities are putting in, we also have private partnerships with businesses. They have communities outside their business. The sheriff's office has access to those cameras as well. So as a vehicle is moving through the county, we have the ability to track that vehicle, through the county and find a good spot where it stopped at. Gateway is a good thoroughfare between the east side and the west side of the county, and that's why we're coming here to try to see if, and rather than going to each one of the individual communities within the CDD, within Gateway, it's easier for us to come to the board here and say, hey, listen, with 3 or 4 cameras, we can capture almost the entire area, the entire district with just 3 or 4 cameras placed at the main entrances and exits. There are 2 companies that provide these services. The sheriff's office is not in the business of selling cameras. We're trying not to do that. We're not pushing any one company to the next. We're literally doing it for the safety and security, the preventions of crime, and the easier ability to solve the crimes after they happen. One example that I use all the time because it happened most recently, Eagle Ridge. All the Eagle Ridge roads over there are all county maintained roads with individual communities within inside Eagle Ridge. They put 2 LPR cameras, one coming into the community, one coming out of the community. Within a month, they had a rash of burglaries that happened within inside Eagle Ridge. Doesn't happen very often in there, but within a month of them installing these LPR cameras, it happened. LPRs are owned by whoever installs them. If they're installed by the CDD, the Gateway owns them. The sheriff's office has live access to them. The sheriff's office went through at those specific times that the crimes happened, and they ran every license plate that went through that LPR within the time of the crimes happened. Say it was 11 to 1 a.m. 5 of the vehicles that went through there during the crime were through that same LPR 50 times. We know they live in there or assume they live in there. 1 vehicle was only been through that LPR 1 other time. We focused our investigations on that 1 license plate and that 1 vehicle, and we were able to solve a vast majority of those burglaries in there, including a grand theft that happened in there, just with 1 LPR camera. So the technology is great. The people that install them say Gateway. Gateway they own the cameras. They have access to them. You guys can access to the information. The sheriff's office is able to just review that stuff in real time. The cost of them are pretty similar between the 2 companies that we're recommending. And the reason we're recommending only these 2 companies right now, because these 2 companies are the only 2 companies that we can do a live feed into those LPR cameras. The other ones they can get and then they store into a cloud, right? And then it takes the sheriff's office, one of the detectives, to come back to you guys and wait for Monday to come here and somebody give us a password and then all. We have one in, say we put one in Hampton Park, and I don't have access to it. Only the HOA president has access to it, and it just takes days. These new technology LPRs that are provided from these 2 companies gives the sheriff's office live access to those cameras. The LPRs take multiple pictures of the vehicle as it drives by. It takes a picture of the tag. And of course, with that tag number, it provides registered owner information, make, model, VIN number, and all that. And it gives us easy access to solve crimes after they happen. So that's one of the things we're trying to do. We're trying to get them as many possible places as we can around the county. We've had a big push on them. They've been very, very successful in preventing and solving crimes that have happened around the county. So
what's a typical installation? How much a typical would cost?
So I said before, I don't want to get into the prices and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, because we don't sell them, and I don't want to get in there. I know that Eagle Ridge installed 2 cameras. It was a flock system. They paid approximately $2,500 for the camera. They paid for the install. They pay to service it and monitor it. The data, everything, you guys have complete access to it and the sheriff's office has access to it. That's a yearly cost. It's $2,500 a year. Camera, maintenance, and storage of all the information of every vehicle that passes.
So that
through there.
2,500, just so I'm clear, that's equipment cost and subscription?
Subscription
That's
and
all
maintenance cost
ballpark?
per year.
We just put in
approximately.
we switched from the regular cameras that they read the license, but we went to the fancier one. We put in 4 and it was $17,000 for 4 of them.
Okay.
And we had the posts and everything, took the old camera off, put the new one in. Question, do you have
Do
to
you,
have?
do you guys, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you
Wait.
guys have access to, does the sheriff's office have access to your guys' camera as a live feed 24-hour link into
As a matter
there?
of fact, we did it this morning.
You did this morning?
Yeah.
Awesome sauce. Yeah, that's great.
Probably
The,
could put the new one in, Ed, but I don't know that we have access.
Well, the question though is if we have internet connection at all of our sites, do these have to have internet connection?
They can, they run off they can run off a cellular service because I think that's what Eagle Ridge is using.
Because I was gonna say, there's 3 locations you talk about at Griffin and Gateway Boulevard, east and west or north and south. I'm not aware that there's any internet connection there.
They can run them, they run them off a cell service. A lot of them run off of a
Okay.
cellular
And
service.
then the other one that we had an issue today, I talked to the commissioner about it. We had a guy pull a stunt last night. We're starting to run into what you're talking about. It's getting immensely serious. We have a tow truck comes in, a tow truck at Hidden Links to the guest side. Well, he couldn't get in. So he takes and goes around to the owner's side and the gate opens. He had an evac. So we got his license plate using our new camera, but y'all won't share the information as to who it is.
Yeah.
What good is that to us?
State statute dictates our ability to run tags and share that information with people. We're only allowed to use it in reference to criminal investigations. It would be like
What
me
part of
running
a guy coming in there that has no authority to be in
Yeah.
is not criminal?
I'm not exactly, if you want to talk afterwards, I'm not exactly specific on
Well,
to what they
my
were
problem
doing in there.
is that if
They
we're
were
going,
probably a repo company, and repo companies are
that's
a little-
exactly what I think it was.
Yeah, and they have a little bit of more access through state statute than a
But
normal
we
tow
need-
truck does, yeah.
The ball's in our park, I'm assuming, to go after them, because what my access control staff, they weren't very happy after talking to whoever was in your office. And of course, the commissioner lives in our deal, and so he wants protection, but this is nonsense. We need to be working together, because I'll turn it over to our attorney and we'll go after him. I didn't get that same enthusiasm out of my staff talking to your people that they really rated this as a very high issue. And if that's the case, what are we doing it for?
Yeah, I agree.
I
If
do
you
have
want
some,
to talk offline, I'll be more than happy to look into what that issue is, and we'll see how I can help you out.
But the cameras, you're right. If you go to these new LPRs, they are unbelievable. We're
And
using ours.
The
and
new
we're getting
technology
owners.
for the sheriff's office to be able to see this stuff in real time, it not only does it benefit Gateway, I mean, just you guys having them here, it affects the whole county. People are using this as a thoroughfare,
think they're a
between
deterrent.
the county. They are a huge
Well,
deterrent.
Well, I do too. I just wonder why the county wouldn't do it at critical intersections. Why are they hodgepodge individual CDDs? That's.
We do have them in at some areas. There are several of them that we put up. Some of the trailers that you see around the county are LPR readers.
They're monitoring your speed.
You know, so-
I know Big Brother's here, but I mean, it seemed like it was a county initiative.
I do have some questions. So in summary, I guess we're looking at more of a proactive approach versus a reactive approach.
Sure.
So would it be fair to say, would it police be automatically dispatched? Let's see if the camera on 82 in Griffin, which is mainly coming from Lehigh, suddenly live, you guys see that, the car was reported stolen. Would it be automatically like somebody would be dispatched without him knowing, and then you guys would stop him?
Absolutely. Both
Okay.
camera systems have the ability to what we call hot plate a car. If it's reported stolen yesterday out of Miami or Tampa or Fort Myers and Vigilant and Flock are nationwide systems, right? That's why we like to have those two systems, because we have that live link with them. If a stolen vehicle's hits on one of those LPR, it automatically notifies dispatch. It automatically notifies our new Arctic Center, and it'll dispatch a deputy to that area where the stolen car's at. A vast majority of these burglaries that are happening in the same areas time and time again are kids stealing cars, driving into the community. They're doing their car burglaries, crimes of opportunity, unlock car doors, and then they're driving out, dropping the car off, and off they go. these LPR systems are a huge benefit for us.
Do you
to
think
solve
6
those crimes.
cameras will work at Gateway?
I think 6 cameras are exactly the need that we need. Both directions of traffic at the three main. Now coming in off of Commerce Lake, the other small little over there by Smash Fitness, what's that road right there? Help me out.
Commerce Lake Drive.
Yeah, Commerce Lake Drive. I don't necessarily think a lot of people use that as an in and out. Most of them are Gateway and Daniels, Gateway 82, Griffin and State Road 82 as
Yeah,
well.
and I think the benefit is if primary deterrent, or at least our recognition system would be at our entrances, but I would also encourage all the HOAs, at least the larger ones, to put something like this.
Especially gated ones.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, theoretically.
especially those communities that have a history of,
Didn't go through that.
some of that stuff.
So then I think,
Not pointing to anyone in particular.
and then
But
that's
my-
what
The point to it is obviously everybody here that lives in Gateway shares the cost of what you guys spend, right? Rather than each individual communities putting in their own system, these 6 cameras within the CBD would pretty much cover every single one of the communities here in Gateway. It would pretty much cover all the, ins and outs of Gateway. We would cover everything coming in and everything coming out. And I think that the cost is more effective to share the cost that way.
No, yeah,
than
I
ask-
completely agree. I
than
think
ask
we would
each
do it as a
individual.
district initiative, but it would also be advantageous for the HOAs to consider, especially some of the larger ones that are
Well, the
gated.
ones that the individual HOAs use is that we're getting a gate broken every week. And that's
Happens where I live
$500.
too.
And we got the license plate and we've got tired of issuing the $500. So now we charge $100 for the first fine, denied when you hit the gate, $300 the second.
Yeah.
The gates aren't being ran as much.
We'd also have to throw Pelican Preserve as part of Gateway into this equation. That would bump the number up to some other number.
But don't you have, didn't you say you have?
Well, but we have an internal system,
Okay,
just
but
like
it's
it
not
does.
part of this.
but it's not part of this.
Okay, yeah.
It's not very good.
Yeah, we would include, it would be
Yeah.
all inclusive.
These cameras are above and beyond. And what I was talking to Flavia about earlier was I was trying to get you guys collectively to take a tour of our Arctic Center down there. When you walk through the door of the place, you're going to be blown away by the technology that we're using in there. The Arctic Center, it's at headquarters on 6 Mile Cypress at the Sheriff's Office headquarters building. Yeah, Arctic. Yeah, it's pretty. The facility in there is awesome. I encourage you, if you guys have the opportunity as the board to get in there and take a tour through there, give me a call. I'll get you guys through there one at a time. And I appreciate you guys' time and taking it. I'm going to forward each one of you the contact information for both companies that are distributing and selling these LPR cameras, and hopefully you guys take a look at
Who
it.
were the 2 companies?
The 2 companies are Vigilant is one of them,
That's who we
and
got.
Flock is another one. Those are the 2 that have the ability for live link into the Arctic Center for the Sheriff's Office to monitor 24/7.
And then I guess, I really enjoy the proactive approach, and then I'm right next door to the high school. So we're gonna have a ton of new people that are gonna be new people, because we don't have enough kids in Gateway to fill the high school. So we know they're coming from all different areas. And unfortunately, you never know. So I think it's a win-win and for all the residents, because if you think, what do we have, Chris, 38 HOAs in Gateway? 50 something?
Total.
Instead of having 50, even if they got 1 camera, that is 50 individual, and you can cover the whole Gateway with 6.
Yeah.
I
It's a
think we could do
no-brainer.
a vast majority. I mean, we'd have to do a couple more on his note, including Pelican Preserve over there.
You can charge them more.
I like Ed to add it to the budget. I'm to recommend adding it.
So both times I came here to speak was budget meetings and asking for more money. I thought I was gonna get lynched in here,
Yeah.
These cameras do not last 20 years, believe me.
Well, thanks for coming in. We appreciate
I
it.
appreciate it, and I'll send you guys all the
Thank you.
information for the
Thank
contact.
you.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, moving on.
Yeah, and I don't have anything in particular, standard report. If anyone has any questions, a couple things that are going to involve the public is we are starting to work on a landscape plan for the construction road that turning into the emergency access road, and that'll involve landscaping that whole stretch of Gateway Boulevard. We're coming up with some different concepts with several vendors, and we'll be vetting those with the board and the general public before we start doing any planning. And also in the next 3 to 4 weeks, you'll probably start seeing Summit Cable coming in to do their fiber run from Daniels Gateway to Griffin, and Griffin to 82. And I think we all have plenty of experience on how intrusive those projects can be.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'd like to know why the the water has to run under tree line and come out through the Pelican Preserve system instead of going straight down through Colonial to the sloughs.
Sure, that would be the C5 project that you're talking about. And there were actually in that original basin permit, and there were pipes already under tree line for that drainage to be included to go into the northern part of Pelican and then out from there. And that's really why it was in the master permit.
That's what you,
It's always been there, Bill, that they were unused.
that's what you want.
Now they're gonna start to use.
You want it to go that way.
Well, yeah, it's going. the
We
right
have
way.
enough water running through our own system without taking from other places.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that track is always.
Say
been-
again, unfortunately, that's what?
5 is going, has always been in our permit, in the gateway permit,
Yeah, to the
and
north.
part of our system.
Correct, yeah.
Well, ain't that great? Thank
Well, I will tell you one thing, Bill, when they went to check the pipes, they're all clogged, and they tried to get us to
Surprise,
unclog them,
surprise.
and we told them we didn't have a problem. If they want to use them, they have to unclog them.
Oh, good.
Anything else for?
Yeah, for Chris, I was a little surprised on item number 1 that was on that. I thought that was a, I don't know what you call it, confidential
Yeah.
discussion. What happened?
All that is bringing in the status of it. There's
Status and amount. That was in the last meeting
Yeah.
also. It didn't give context.
Okay.
yeah,
So is it subject to discussion or are we still?
I think I want to have a separate discussion item, at a separate board meeting, once Chris and I put together a memorandum to the board.
yeah, that'll be the next step after these meetings is a memorandum, and then we'll bring it up.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Do we move on? Is Brian, is your report up next? Do you have anything today?
Yeah, and they'll do.
Okay.
If you want to do it or not, one's landscape and one's natural resources.
Thank you, sir.
Just an update.
So we're not doing the meter today? Is that what I just heard?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, those are really just awareness items.
Good afternoon, Jim Kennedy, landscape lead. The June landscape report, I think you have it there in front of you. It's pretty self-explanatory, actually. There's not a whole lot of fluff that can go along with this. It's pretty mundane, you mow the grass, you trim the grass, you edge it, weed eat it, and blow it off. So that's pretty much what, on a daily basis. And, I think they're doing an outstanding job really keeping up with the mowing right now because of all the rain. But let's just hit some highlights as we went through the month. Some of them were, the pine straw was completed in Stony Brook. They were just highlights. They detailed the flower beds and what have. This is June 7th. Some more about the sports complex. The fields were mowed, spotted, treated the goose grass, and you can see, like I say, it's pretty bit mundane, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, there's nothing significant. We can go through the report.
and you can certainly, I can answer any questions that you might have.
Any
Well,
questions?
I have some, thank you for getting the report there. It does look pretty simple and plain and explained. I just have follow-ups, really. I did receive and this is July, so that it's not here, but I don't want to delay until next meeting for us to talk about this. So Mainscape sent us the July report for all the entries that were sent by staff to them for issues they needed an attention, because that was what the tool that staff is using to communicate with staff. Well, I was surprised that there were really 3 days that the issues were noted. The 20th, which is the day that we had the meeting with Mainscape, and the 29th. So in 30-day window, because I'm gonna just look at the report. I don't want to be meeting with Jim or staff every week. So I'm gonna look at the report the same way you guys do. So in 30 days, staff communicated 3 issues, 3 different times, 6 different issues with Mainscape. I don't think from all the issues that I have voiced that we have, that's enough. And then from the issues that were sent to this particular report, like half of it is overdue, half of it doesn't apply to Manscaped. So I think there's an opportunity for us to actually utilize that tool. If that's the tool that we're going to be using to be communicating with Manscaped, we need to use it. You need to utilize it, because when you bring me that at the next meeting and I'm going to see that you use it twice in 30 days, I think that's unacceptable.
Is there a checklist, Jim? I mean, when you go out and monitor Manscaped's performance, or I'm sure there's different grids and there's different schedules, what are we using to go through and, is this done? Is this done? Is this done? Is this done? How do we maintain and monitor that?
Yeah, it's just a visual check of it. Right now, it's pretty hard when there's no schedule really you can keep that's ironclad, because you got the rain. This perfect example is this week. You can't.
Well, but the areas stay the same. So the frequency of the work being done, I can see where that might change, but the area and the standard to which we're holding them to is in the contract, right?
So your trouble is this way, I think he's referring to, is when you get 4 inches of rain like we've had, you can't cut the grass, so the grass gets high, so you're going to get a bad mark. So somehow you have to have that acknowledgement that the reason it's high is because
the rain.
Right.
Well, I'm not even asking for that. I'm going to give an example. So when I go around and I see a bunch of dead bushes, I don't want to see it. I expect staff sees that before I see it, because on our contract says although dead bushes should be removed, because we're paying for it. So and I can tell you those dead bushes been there for at least a year, if not longer. And I don't care if it's 1, I don't care if it's 5, they shouldn't be there. So I expect that if Manscaped missed it, then when he has either the drive with Freddie or when he does the drive by himself, or as he just sees it as he go, hey, use the system. I noticed that this needs to be done. So then we can hold them accountable. That is the only way you're going to get Manscaped to perform the items that are in the contract. There was a big eye opener when we sat here, and there were a lot of issues. That was a misunderstanding that Manscaped did not necessarily knew what was in the contract, and we had to go page by page. We're like, no, it's included, like the garbage was one. So things like that, like really to the minimal. I just think we need to pay more detail. I'm not concerned about the grass being overgrown because it's wet. I get it, but that doesn't mean that they cannot go in and do the other services line in the contract and know that. And that's the only way we're going to hold them accountable. And if they don't do it in 30 days and 60 days, then we get somebody else to do it and we discount out of their contract. That's
Well,
what
I would expect after how many years have we had Manscaped?
14, I think.
I would imagine by this point, they would know what's in the contract.
Well, you'd be surprised, because when I sat here, there was a lot of, no,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So I guess what we're asking for is, if there's a system in place, let's make sure, because that's the only way we can hold accountability.
Yeah, who is it that you're looking for on staff, Flavia?
Well, Jim is
to
the
do?
one that handles Manscaped, so I guess
So he'd be the person.
directly, I want you to just know that contract and hold them to that contract. Like, here's another example, the palm trees, they started, when I complain about the palm trees, when they got, the next day, they started cutting it, but they stopped. And they say every Wednesday and Thursday, weather permitting, we're gonna cut the palm trees. Okay. Did not like today, did not rain. I did not see anybody out there cutting palm trees. So those are the things that I expect that he is going to be keep notes and follow up with personal touch and say, hey, how come the crew was not here? Because the only day they were here, they were able to cut 50 trees because they have one bucket truck. So if the year, we're halfway through the year.
They're not keeping to a frequency. It's going to elongate the time period. So
they're not going to complete it, and we're paying.
And that's the problem. And I'm just using you as an example. That's the problem that we've had in the past, is we've engaged vendors and we just haven't held them accountable. So we have said we're doing things differently. Over the past couple of years, we're going to hold the vendors accountable. We're going to have a checklist. We're going to have a standard operating procedure. So we just need to make sure that we've got something defined in that area, and let's just do a better
Is
job.
August the time? I know nothing about this. Is August the time of the year that the palm trees would typically be trimmed? Or
Well,
is it
you
done
want to do it
a lot?
before hurricane season.
Before hurricane season.
But
Okay,
yes,
so that's a date that we could
But
define
everybody else does.
in our
too.
contract, and says that by between June 1st and August 1st, we
All
expect all of
trimmings.
our palm trees to be done.
so here's the problem, Doug. When we signed the contract, and as of last month, 0 palm trees were done besides the ones at the Girl Scout. I think there were 8 or 9. And then after I complained, 50 here. None
Well,
was
the only
done.
reason the ones on Girl Scout, I think,
Because
is
somebody
because
complained.
Pinecrest complained.
So that's the thing. So the contract is going, and then I guess they didn't know that they need a direction for us to tell them to cut the trees.
Well, I agree with you 100%. That's wrong. But the contract should say that between this date and this date, every year, we expect all the palm trees. to be
Does the
trimmed.
Or
contract
staffing
say that?
takes- I mean, it's two things.
Yeah.
Well,
Either it's now, I would agree with you, that should be called out in
So
the
do
contract,
I.
but if it's not, then it's staff's responsibility to keep them.
Bring it up.
Correct. But they
There's no
both have
teeth
to
in
know
the
it.
contract.
Pardon?
There's no teeth in the contract.
Yeah, but
There's
that's
no
why- that's your
dates,
job.
There's no anything in there that you can hold their feet to the fire.
So
Yeah,
how,
you
so
call
how
them in
about
briefs.
you go revise the contract and you come back to the board and you give us suggestions and what do you think there's no teeth and what do you think the
Yeah,
changes
what do
that
we need to
be
do to
done?
arm you and
So
make you
we can
stronger?
amend it and help you,
Right.
you know, to have some teeth into it.
One of the things you need to find out or know about is we're having this similar issue over at Gateway Greens. These companies, and it's not just Mainscape, it's all of them. They can't get employees.
You know, and the
They are
COVID's killed that.
hurting really bad. It's not an excuse for them not to meet the contract, but that's fact. We looked at the same thing going out. We talked to several other, and we told them what's going on. Well, we've got the same problem. They don't and they can't get employees. They're having a nightmare.
Absolutely.
But they're
Amen.
still taking our money.
That's
The
much
work they're
better.
not doing.
I think that place up there, it's got that kind of a funny shape called Washington. They do the same thing every day of the week.
Yeah, but
Well,
they
that's
can
why we
spend
need
money,
contract,
right?
that's why we need,
Some kind of,
contract language.
But
that says-
we need something in our file and ammunition to fire back at them to say the next time we have a gun, because I agree with Doug. We may not have any teeth in it, but we got the big teeth, and that is just fire you.
Yeah.
That's the big one.
And we
Sorry.
we've had meetings, the past 3 weeks
Yeah,
with the
it's
field
helpful.
staff, and then we had it with the area supervisor and putting together some amendments to the contract. So there has been some action taken.
Somebody's
Also,
dealing with Freddie.
well, we dealt with Freddie
Okay.
and Juan
Me.
first, and then we brought Eric in second and went into the contract and the terms and said, well, we're putting maps together to identify plant beds, linking that to the contract and making amendments for where it's needed for the contract.
Along that line, we're having some issues because of the rain again. But today we had aquagenics in doing the spraying. And I don't know if the guy had never done it before, or he's just doing what he's told to do. But he went all the way up our Lake 116, I think. And he left a furrow like, what are you doing in here after 5 inches of rain yesterday? Just
tractor.
tore up the yards, and, oh, my phone rang off the hook, including my wife. Matter in hell, why can't they take and go on a boat and spray it from the shore, from out in the water? I mean, if they can't get out there, put the boat in. But boy, they're tearing up yards, and that's expensive.
So those are a few things that I have in regards to the mainscape. And then I have budget items that I kind of wanted, and I did mention this to you before. I went back to that list, that original list that I'm assuming Glenn started and has the wish list, that I guess that's how Laura referred. I added the total cost for that. And what I did notice is a lot of it had the removal of this fish palms and stuff that at one point even I agreed to it. Are those fish palms included on the personal touch contract for cleaning?
What, fish palms?
Is that what it's called, Al? Here, I'll tell you exactly what they're called.
Where are they located?
Fishtail
Everywhere.
palms are, but I don't know if we
They're-
have.
they're
any.
Hold on, let me see what they're called, because they're everywhere on this $69,000 item here. And if they're included in the contract, I guess what I'm gonna ask is, let's not pay for those removal.
You talking about foxtail?
No, it's something different.
Chinese fan palms?
That's it. So if those are included on the personal touch contract, because it says palms, it doesn't say others, I think we should, on this list, the Gateway Plant Replacement Project, I think we should halt the removal of all those palm trees and have them clean it and reassess it and see, does it look good? Is it okay or not? Because that is something we
Why
can't.
would we
currently-
remove them?
I think there were visual issues on the road. I mean, some may need to be removed, but not as many as there are in here.
Okay.
So what I would like for you to do is that Gateway Plan Replacement Project, I noticed some stuff got done, like 4 or 5 items. I do need you, because it's budget, and hopefully by Thursday, go back to it, look at the things that you can that you may not need it, or stuff that needs to be done. I think it needs to be revised. I know we're waiting for a revised cost. Because I hate it that we're promising the residents that we're gonna take care of landscaping, but then there's no money. Because once I add this, plus items that we have an issue in front of Stony Brook that have not been maintained, that are not even included in here, plus other items that I have brought it in, we don't have enough money for the budget for that. So I just don't want to be in the position that I'm promising that things are getting done when I have the information.
When you know it's not gonna
that
be.
I know it's not gonna get done.
Right.
So
Well, just to add on to that, me and Freddie are working on the revision of it and taking out some of it. And I think once we get to a point, we're gonna add 82 and Griffin to this, and also Stony Brook, if that's your wishes. That's what you'd like to see?
well, I don't think I can make that decision. I think it'll be a board decision. I would like,
Well, I know, but
I would
I
like
mean-
to come to the board with a summary. So I would like to empower you and Freddie to go back to this, because I guess Freddie had a part with maybe Elle and Glenn. Go back to this, revise this, come, if
Right.
you want to come to me and you have my feedback, and then we can come to the board, that's fine.
Okay.
But I do think that, we don't have much time, and I think that this needs to be
Priority.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that once we get what we're going to do, we already have the cost. That's in the contract of whatever your plant's gonna cost, a 3-gallon, a 7-gallon, a palm, of whatever it is. So that's just a matter of plugging in the prices.
So that's my issue. When I look at, I don't want to just waste up. When we look at the contract, and when I saw that we're paying $40 for 1 3-gallon plant, I didn't see that in the contract. But on the Mainscape invoice and estimate for those pandamas that went over there on Gateway, that there was $2,800. It's $40 for 3-gallon plant.
Yeah,
So
pandanas
who's
are-
looking at those things? First I'm looking at, it's just a lot, and I think there's a huge opportunity. I think we need to really look into it and hold the vendor accountable for all of those items.
So if I hear what you're saying, and I think we're gonna have the wrench upon us pretty soon, which means anything that we do today, and Chris, this is really for all departments, we have to make sure we control what we control, and there's oversight in every area. So we really have to make sure if we're responsible for an area, that we're taking full accountability and holding the vendors accountable, whether it's cost items or contract or just, quality of service. So, okay, thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Anything else?
Thank you.
We're good? All right.
Are they replacing the grass by the sidewalk? Because I remember Laura did say that is included in the contract. 'Cause when they damage all
Maybe
that
the
sod by
sidewalk
hidden
on it.
licks.
Yeah, right now
Is
it
it-
comes up. Yeah, that's part of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it may be because of the rain and the water.
Oh, okay,
Haven't
well.
been there yet.
Yeah, I got that estimate today.
All right.
We're just waiting on the sod.
All the sod fields are flooded, so it's hard to get it out.
Okay, Al?
Good afternoon, all. Elle Harris, Natural Resources for Gateway Services. First of all, I have a quick question. I know you may have some questions regarding this report, but Mr. Tinkle made a comment about getting a boat out. Is there anywhere on the golf course, or can the golf course maintenance personnel get with me and show me where they will provide access to launch a boat? Okay. And on the other note of that, sometimes when you drive across the wet grass, it may leave a tire mark, but not necessarily a rut in the soil under the grass. Now, if they leave a rut, they're required, and I've had them go out and fix many of them when they went through somebody's yard and they leaked herbicide, they had to go replace grass. They left a rut, they had to go out there and repair that rut and replace sod. But I've had nobody contact me. So if that happens over there, please direct those folks to send an email to customer care. We will come out, we will investigate, and if it requires sod replacement, aquagenics will be held to the fire. We've done it before. They replaced a lot of sod down in Stony Brook. Wind drift, overspray. Hey, it's your fault. You got to take care of it. They shouldn't have been sprayed.
Just purely taking that gator out when it's loaded with water.
I understand.
And it's heavy.
I understand, but
Okay.
the alternative is having them walk
do
the
that.
banks with a 5-gallon backpack, and that's not practical or feasible. So, but if anybody will report this damage, we will hold them to the contract and have it repaired.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you
Thank
for the
you.
report. I think it was great. I mean, it was very.
Well, thank you so much. If you have any questions regarding it, I did ask some direction for question in the littoral removals. I've had a few people get on me and my vendor about spraying behind their house. They have either an opposition to any herbicides or they don't want any of the vegetation killed. So we have a choice in place for residents who want littorals removed in areas that can be removed. We've been out there diligently doing this. However, then this, I get a call from a resident and they are irate that something was sprayed behind their house, whether it was to narrow the littorals back or to take out a thalia plant. They're irate. What do I tell these folks?
You
You're
tell
not
them- you
allowed
tell-
to
you
do
tell
that.
them-
We
you
can
tell them
take
you-
them out, but we can't leave them.
You tell them you're following the standards, that they have a question 3 o'clock on the third Thursday of the month. Come
Okay,
here to-
and that's basically what we've been doing. I just want to know if that's the direction.
That's
Don't get in the
exactly
middle
how
of it.
we
Let them
handle
come right here.
Yeah,
That's
Okay.
exactly how we handle in Pelican.
okay.
Awesome.
Anything
Any
else?
questions? No. Thank you, Ellie.
Very
Appreciate it.
good, thank you.
So we will go to action items 4B, notice of development, application and plat project.
Sure, and this is for the project that Mr. Guy just mentioned, the drainage going under a tree line. NAR submitted a development application and submitted their plat for approval. That's been approved by the district engineer after the review. And I think Tony has reviewed it, and we just are asking for board approval of this contingent on final review and approval by the district attorney.
Yes, Tony.
And just one comment, and I'm going back to my notes, and I have this note, I think it may have been a comment by Mr. Gepper. Is there a question about the multimodal path in this development or not?
Yes.
And we did not look at it from that, that's a city of Fort Myers DRI issue, but that was a note I wrote in bold.
I want to make sure that that doesn't escape us. The whole process of this development coming to fruition. WCI Lenore has a responsibility to put the multimodal path down the west side of Tree Line Boulevard.
And I checked the plans and worked with Carol Brocky on that just to ensure that was on the plans and will be installed. And it is on their off-site plans. It just didn't show it on their internal
I don't
plans.
want it to miss that.
Yeah.
WCI Lenore has a habitat tax. Well, it's a light.
And it's just a continuation with the development in front of the C5 to continue that path.
And hopefully, the requirement is from the light all the way to Wood-Dixon. I
Yeah,
don't
and
know
that's,
that,
and that's a city of Fort Myers, I think,
Right.
obligation, so,
I don't think so.
but it's not a district issue unless.
Well, they did it on the east side for us, and it wasn't for the city, they did it for the,
It was a city development requirement.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, whatever, so it gets done.
Yeah, and I guess, Chris, you said the plans, not for this site, but off-site, do reflect that?
Yes, they do. They show it. And I talked to the development representative, Alex Heinbaugh, about that. And he said, yep, look right here. It's on the plans and sent it to me. And I sent those to
Okay.
Carol too, just to
Thank you.
confirm with her.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for following up.
do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Yeah, 4-1.
Okay.
Okay, 4C, budget discussion.
And I'll just do an intro. And of course, we had plenty of public comment today.
Hey, Chris, let's take just a couple minutes.
Sure.
Let's take just a quick 5-minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the proposal we come from the entire council last year. It's a 2020. I'll check the contract.
I mean,
I'll check the contract. I'm gonna note because my recollection is.
Yep.
Don't pay any attention. I don't read
What
what's
you mean,
there.
you can't do it? I get it.
I really brought the shirt.
Most of this is all the emails that I'm getting. Everything else that I got.
The winter's way different than growing season.
Why is it so hot? I mean, and all these people come in and you just
Resave it.
but
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And it doesn't matter how we got.
We just like sure.
Okay. If we do this, what can we do? Trying to sell your house, you don't really, no, it's so tell me about your utility infrastructure. No, when you buy a house, you're not gonna have that.
That's part of the training. That's the way of training. I believe, I can check, I believe we have a large one. I'll have to get double check, you have Tetra Tech, okay?
And they have to do it without pension, but then they never told them they're in the house.
I get it. It's just what it's like to love for passion. And why we're trying to think roughly between spend money. You know, it's painful for us to go through the second.
No, I read it.
And I don't get how people break. The second where you're at. I even got something that has no bridge money.
Yeah, I saw something like that. So it's a.
Yeah, we get, why would you get $200?
Okay, but where you get, here's the side, right? And this is, so it's within an easement, it's an easement or,
Why Bill disapproved that? C5 did. Why Bill disapproved that C5 did?
yes, sir.
What's the problem?
Well, here, hang on a second, Chris.
What about?
I wrote a big note that day. Yeah, I brought it with me. Yeah, it's in here somewhere. I brought it with me. Okay.
Oh, golf carts.
Thank you.
Okay, let's try to get everybody back in order.
Yeah, absolutely. It's DRI. Okay. No, I had that big bold yellow I wrote down. Yeah.
We went to golf start registration.
Sir.
And after the first $200 or $300 fines, everybody's start registering.
Okay. This is my reminder.
We had asked our owner, who also owns the one across the street here in Westminster, if they are interested or had any interest in that. They had interest, but they couldn't meet the price tags. They're not involved.
Hey, Bob, are you ready?
Okay, we're getting reconvening. Mr. Bloom, are you available?
Well, I heard that golf course was going.
I'll chat you
Yes,
up.
sir. I'm here.
Nobody in their right mind would say that.
Okay, we're gonna reconvene now. We're gonna go into budget discussion.
Sure. And I'll open this up. Of course, the latest version, we had the 3.1, we have the 3.2, we have a 3.3. And we did a comparison of the budgets all the way up to the 3.5, which you see in front of you, and there's also a paper handout in front of you, hard copy. But there's borrowing for $5 million, $7 million for 20 years, for 5-year periods, and it's giving that explanation and then showing the impact below that to the assessments.
Well, I think, Chris, we need to open up with, have we gone through and looking at some of the conversations we've had around some of the items that we can convert to capital? Because I think, from what I understand, some of the some of the restrictions on going 20-year financing is the items that we had was only what, when push come to shove, it was like $1.5 million or $2 million.
1.4 million is what we had.
1.4, and we were looking at 3.5, upwards of more than that, which really made 20 years, you know.
Wait, say that again?
We're talking about the difference between a maintenance item, you know, something in the operation and maintenance budget versus something we can finance over the 20 years.
I went through and I agree with what Rod said. I'd much rather go and have staff immediately get to Stephen a listing of all of the items to create a version 3.6 that essentially follows Rod's idea of taking 3.3, pulling out that 2 million or whatever the number is that Stephen can live with, because Stephen's the one's going to have to author a document that goes to the bank. And then take and make that version a 20-year deal, which my guess is, Doug, by my calculations, I did that. And I was bringing that rate down to around $770 to $790.
That's what I thought we were,
And
that's
and
what
I think
we were
that's,
marching towards.
and I think
is-
that's livable.
Yes, that's what I thought we were marching towards, was taking all of the items that we deemed critical, that we would target for year one, but, you know, there might be some spillover, just depending on, you know, execution timeline. And that would debt finance us for 20 years, that's about $50. And then we would get to about 17% or somewhere around like that.
Well, here's the thing that I'm seeing, and some of the residents I think we're picking up on it. If we would go, let's say, take Rod's number, that it was that 2 million, and you throw that on top of that option of 446. So let's say it's 6.4, call it 6.5. If it's 6.5 million, 6.5 million for 20 years is probably going to work out to be about 500,000 principal and interest. That's issue one. Issue two is to come back now, and I think something what Margaret said is now determine how much of that will actually need to be paid in 22, 23, 24, 25. In other words, it's going to be staggered. That to me makes more sense than anything. But what that means is that staff is going to have to take that list of 6.5 million and help Steve by telling Steve, bought and paid for in 22, bought and paid for 23, 24, 25, whatever it is. But at least we've got it identified that would have set the trigger or the value for that 7 million for the next 20 years based upon the interest rate that they're talking about.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, and I thought this is kind of what we're doing, we have a list of critical items. And these are items that we put in this budget to be addressed in fiscal year 2022. Knowing that there might be some spillover, but
Yes.
at least we're going to plan to address them. So
we're at the time of cleaning up the spill.
In order for this to be, you know, feasible, or maybe responsible is a better word, to do a 20-year, you want to make sure that you're knocking out all of your major critical items, because if you're debt financing, and let's say that 5 million goes up to 7, so it's, let's say $75 per ERU annually. You in year 2, so 2023, you're still going to have that 75, but you shouldn't have any major capital projects because we're addressing that.
Because you're planning for it.
Yeah, we're
That's
basically,
the
what we're
point.
doing is we're almost budgeting for a 3 to 5 year, you know, plan. And I almost say 3 years. When you say 5 years, like they want it away.
That's exactly what we're
3-year
doing.
critical item. We're going to plan in fiscal 2022 and finance over 20 years.
That's exactly right. The only thing that would change that would be if staff thought that X million, 2 million, 3 million, whatever the number is, needs to be done in 22 and the cost incurred in 22, then identify it.
Or you couldn't, or it doesn't fall into the path of debt financing.
Or it doesn't fall into the path. Yeah, that's a whole different.
And I did have someone tell me, and this is a really good point. Anytime you increase an assessment, it's very difficult to walk that back. And that's just, you know, the way things typically work. But I think the way we do it here is we do that marginal increase and we knock out the major items, so we don't have this conversation again.
Well, I think a lot of our residents are upset on the fact that we wouldn't be here had we been more fiscally responsible earlier. That we can't fix. But we can do one thing, we can make sure it doesn't happen again.
And I think that's partially true, but it's also true that we're at a point in our community where it's old. I mean,
It's old.
it's
That's
30
exactly
years.
right.
I mean, even if now, maybe the thing to do in the past is to build some type of reserve for all the stuff, but I can understand why it may not have happened. But part of the issue is things it's reached its shelf life. We've got to replace irrigation. We've got to replace these things. And it's just a matter of timing.
And then there's another one that we've got on the 001. I'm not 400 Enterprise. It takes care of itself. All we need to do on it is to make sure we lead it in the right direction with a real good capital plan. But I just looked at this one, Chris, that you'd handed me, and one thing that I didn't see, and maybe I missed it because I was going fast. You talked about a building. We got an issue of a building. And for the life of me, I don't know how that can's going to get kicked down the road. We're running out of time. So that building needs to be in here somewhere, and I didn't see that anywhere.
No. Well,
So
we
those
talked
are
about maybe incorporating a building into the park plan, and it would be part of that $5.5 million. There would be in that building there, which is okay, but I think we need to start budgeting for it.
My point is let's make sure in that 001 capital reserve projection, that 20-year projection, that Brian and all his people have done a real good, thorough job of projecting out those things that would fall in capital.
Well, and I would add there too, when it comes to building needs, how soon do we need it? Because as far as I know right now, we're at capacity.
Did you go out there in the garage? You can spit in the ground anymore and hit cement.
Yeah, I'm talking about the new building that we put in at that capacity. This building, now we're starting to double up again like we did in the past, which is not optimal for employees. So either we're going to have to acquire something, build something, or rent something. It's either temporary or permanent.
Either way it goes, it's money.
So
the issue though is what I'd like to see is that if staff can quickly get a letter to Steve or a spreadsheet to Steve, letting Steve know what staff feels these times are for this stuff to be done that we have identified. I think they did a great job in identifying all things. When I saw that letter coming out that we're pulling 1.4 million out of it, I began to wonder, what the hell are we doing? Why would we go and spend all that man-hour and brain power to develop something which I assumed was legitimate only to throw it out?
Well,
so
because
and
it's,
if that is
85, 100%, and no one wants to pay.
If that's, I don't care about that. Our job is a fiduciary responsibility.
No, I agree with you.
What they did in the past, I don't care. But the issue is that I do think we need to be able to tell Steve, because he's got a hard time knowing how much of that 5 million are you going to need for next year? Because there's no sense putting in $500,000 for P&I if you're only going to have 250.
Right.
That in of itself will drive that rate down. And then the other ones
that's
are,
a good point.
then the other ones are the O&M, and I'm assuming you all have gone through the O&M, which I would call truly O&M, that wouldn't begin to fly on capital. That's the one where we pay dollar for dollar. That's big time. Those are the ones we need to look at to see if there's a cost. I looked at it and I didn't see anything. There might be an argument on one position. I had one person chew my backside out about the assistant district manager. All I can say is that person doesn't know blank from Shinola.
Well, and it's not 250. There's some kind of,
There's a rumor going around.
where it's like, why would it, and it's not 250.
What it was, is it was the combination of the staff payrolls and the position is what it was. So these rumors around this place fly so fast, it's not funny. But I looked at it and I didn't see much that you guys put in there that I would do much changing on the operation. I think, in fact, it looked like somebody went back and skinnied it down just within the last couple of weeks. Because I saw things like water usage, water meter, $40,000. Next time it was $32,500. I saw those things. So somebody's been doing some whittling, but I don't know that you got much more room to whittle on the O&M. I think where the real whittling on this comes is to identify 22's actual needs of that bond money to know how much of that bond we've got to put in there for the accounting. To allocate. And then the other one.
But
I tried to
once we set the target of what the bond's going to be, correct?
Yeah,
whatever that dollar,
we'll
whatever
go for
that
a 10 or
number is.
$20 million bond bill.
Okay, but we're paying on that bond the day.
No.
Initiate.
No.
We're not?
It says we borrow it. Oh,
You only pay as you borrow?
Oh, it's only as you borrow it.
What'll happen is,
Then you're not really getting a bond, you're getting spending authority.
No, what would happen,
It's
what will
an
happen,
anticipation.
Yeah.
what it appears to be, if the board is going to do a 5-year borrowing, it'll be a 5-year note. And then the board can then initiate a validation action to have a 20-year borrowing authority. And in that 20-year borrowing authority, you would have the ability to take out your 5-year note and issue a series
Okay.
of, you'd issue a series of bonds. Now, what Stephen is working with, as I understand, and Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong, is a interim, like we did with Center State before, is for Lake Bank Restoration, interim 5-year borrowing, where there'd be capitalized interest at the time of the loan closing that goes into a pot. And that the interest payments for a year would be interest only, so that the assessments for that would not start until fiscal year 22, 23. And what I would suggest also, when we go do the validation, once again, you can do 20 years, you can do 30 years. You have a lot of flexibility. And we talked also about the dollars that go in there. And that's what becomes important with the team, the financial advisor, Russ, Chris as a manager, Tetra Tech as the engineer, Stephen Blue, myself, to describe the projects and then add contingency factors and then add additional amounts so that you're maximizing the validation amount. You don't have to borrow all of it, though.
I mean,
You make individual decisions on a basis. I want to issue $5 million series of bonds to finance A, B, and C. That's already been
I mean,
validated.
here's what it boils down to.
Until you borrow, you don't pay.
We
we
need
know
to,
it's gonna
we
be
need to figure
staggered.
out how we can get everything done that we need to get done and keep that increase between 10 and 20%, or let's say around 15, 20, whatever. Anything above that, I think it's gonna be tough for us to.
I was looking at it the other way, and it may be the same thing, is that I just don't see the need to go over $800. I just don't see it.
And I guess, correct me, Stephen, did I make any?
And 1 second, Tony. And even if we got to pull in a couple $100,000 of reserves to offset some of the expenses for next
Well,
year, and
keep
O&M and.
in mind now, we got to watch this deal. That 5.3 million, I don't know if y'all caught it. We had $300,000 of this year's reserves and $725,000 of our reserve fund was in that deal. That thing was
So we were already tapping the
We
reserve
were
fund.
already tapping it for $1 million. Yep.
Of pulling a
Did you
million
catch
in.
that?
Well,
Is that not true?
Oh, yes. And Stephen, you
So
want
we
to comment
got
on
to
that?
watch it. My thing is, rather than tapping that, I'd rather keep that cash on the hand to pay a year or 3 years of principal and interest than pay for something
Yeah, it
up
doesn't
front
matter.
with cash.
Right,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, either way, we're leveraging the reserves for a time that we need it. which is now.
Yeah.
And I like to pay off the P&I actually to offset some of the costs. That's not a bad idea.
And then the other one that I think that goes along with this, that's to me is critical, is that everybody I've talked to, and they're all at least sticking together, is that the timeline on this is about 6 months. We needed to start that bond validation process
Yeah, we're late
60
on that.
days ago.
Yeah,
We
we're
need
late.
to
We're
go
late.
right
But I
now.
think it's okay. And I don't like, one of the recommendations was to go 5-year and assess based on the 5-year, but then also go through bond validation and then pay that off. But that doesn't help us.
forces you to put the rate up high
Yeah,
to
but
cover it.
yeah.
That's too,
That
that's
doesn't
silly.
help us.
No,
It
don't
doesn't
help.
us. It might
No.
help us next year because that rate will drop significantly, but it doesn't help us this year.
It's going to be a surcharge this
Yeah.
year, and there
It
ain't any
doesn't-
way you
that
can get
doesn't help
around
us
it.
this year.
No. that's
So I think we're all in agreement. We want to get the assessment as low as possible. And we think that a 20-year, which is, we've been talking about it for, at least the last couple of meetings, doing 20-year financing. And I think we can do it over, put all our items in. And if it takes us 6 months to go through bond validation, there's just some projects that'll start towards the end of the year and carry over, which is okay.
18.
Yeah, I guess two things. If Stephen, if I misstated anything, please correct me. I'm always willing to be corrected if necessary. And secondly, the 6 to 9 months is once we get the engineer's report approved. It's not, so that needs to happen. We need to get that team together and start putting that in quick, and then get the board to agree what the projects are, get the engineer's report, then we do the assessment methodology report. And so that's what we need. Then we get the authorization to file the validation action, get the resolution.
Yeah.
Because you
Even
could
if it
do-
takes us 9 months to start some of this stuff, still, at least it's the most affordable, equitable financing available.
And you can use a bond anticipation note to pay any cash flow.
I know we want to
Yes.
do this as quickly as possible. And I want to make sure that it is done as deliberatively as possible. In that, I don't want to go back and look like we did now on pond banks and say, we spent all that money putting the stone everywhere. Well, we probably shouldn't have done that. There were cheaper alternatives and ways of doing it. So I don't want to rush through that process. And I'm very afraid that in our desire to get it done, that may occur. Now, I know that also, it's just kind of an aside, but it's interesting that Surfside condo that collapsed, their board had been debating the $15 million cost for the repairs that they knew of for years.
They kicked the
wrestled with
can
that
down the road.
for
and
years.
98
That's exactly
people
right.
died.
So
Yeah.
we don't, I know none of us want to do that, and we're not going to do that. But we got to keep that in mind. So if the costs are a little higher,
Well,
then
I think the things, Bob, we're talking about are not based on that type of a decision.
no, we're not
that we
going to
have
collapse
make an
the
engineering
country.
opinion.
But the drainage problems are significant, and they could be catastrophic.
Yeah, and what happens in the engineer's report, there are estimate in quantities. For example, the engineer's report may say need to repair 2,000 linear feet of stormwater piping of X, and there's a cost factor, and it's just general. You know, you don't get into the detailed plan design until later on, after you do the financing, then you issue your request for proposals, then you get your permits. So that's where you get into the nitty gritty of the
Yeah.
scope of the project.
And I'm certainly okay with doing a portion of the community in 22, and another portion in 23, and another portion in 24 from the stormwater structure.
If
point.
staff tells us
Yes,
that. can be done.
yes. If that's the recommendation, that we can stage year after year. But now the result of once they're clean is that requires an inspection process behind that in a certain time frame.
In an
2
annual
years, 3 years.
and a
Right,
maintenance.
Bob, we have been signing for the last 25 years
I know.
a document to South Florida Water Management District that is the biggest joke there is. We have been testifying to them that we are cleaning the sewers every 10 years such that the entire thing on a 10-year cycle is clean. We didn't do nothing.
Okay. And I'm well aware.
That's
yeah.
what bothers me.
Well,
is
it
it's
all
just-
bothers me.
Just
So is,
flat
other
lied.
than, so other than what we've talked about, which is let's try to consolidate,
Go to jail.
transition as much to capital as we can, look at an approach that's 20-year financing and identifying, any opportunities for continued reduction. And again, I did see
Well, I feel
that's come up a couple times, the resurfacing of the basketball court for $25,000. I'm sure there's got to be something else in there.
I have a question.
But there's-
Is it a full resurfacing, or is it because it's so bad that it needs to be like a little bit more than
Completely
just
redone.
reversing? That's what I thought. That's what
That's
I
what's
think.
for.
I think that's the confusion,
Tear it up,
because
rebuild it.
it should not have said refursive. I think it has to be
No,
tear up.
For the 25K that's budgeted, that it says resurfacing, is there, what else?
You can either resurface it or just tear it out.
Same cost?
Might be cheaper there. But I mean,
Well, the thing I'd like to do is to get on the street
you
tonight
don't have
to the people is that I'd be willing to make the motion, and I'm the one that caused the problem to start with. But
That's
I
useful
would
there.
make the motion that we do everything that we can do to do what we have to do to make this thing come in under $800.
Well, I mean,
I know I'm willing to do it.
No,
I don't know if we need a motion on that.
I don't know what the
Yeah.
dollar figure is going to be. The facts will tell what's
Well,
going to be.
I've done this thing and cranked these
Okay.
numbers till
Well,
I'm
then
blue in
you're
the face,
probably
and I
gonna be
feel very
correct, But
confident.
I wouldn't go with the motion.
And that's what I agree. I think we should need to prioritize infrastructure and in items like that. And given that if we do the park or not, that, $25, we can trim that.
There are so many people out there that are so absolutely misled by what's going on in next door and all these other deals. That's the problem.
What is your calculation? What is your calculated increase?
I came up around $790 and it's
So what-
18.5%.
Okay, so that's what I've been looking at, is around 17 to 20%. That's where I thought we would end up based on some of the preliminary conversations and some of the things. So I think the message would be, based on today's meeting, that the board is doing everything in their power to stay within a 15 to 20% increase
And keep
and be able to get everything done that we need to over a.
Can we
a
meet next
plan.
week, next Thursday? And see
Put
what
this
the-
Do a
in
workshop?
Yeah.
The board can continue this meeting to a date and time certain.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be
That's
here,
what I meant, Tony.
so someone else have to chair, but that's.
I'd
that's
rather
fine.
have everybody here.
And
Yeah.
Mr. Tinkle, just for clarification, are you talking about in the budget for next year already including debt service? Or are you talking about over the next 6 to 8 months, engineering report, bond validation, and then on the 23 budget, start that borrowing?
No.
Okay, well, just
Start immediately. But the thing is, it may not start until 6 months from now, which means we have to go
But
and
it's in
get
our
like a
budget
bond.
this year.
We would have to do a bond anticipation note in the interim. But into where you had right now 1.1 million for principal and interest on a 5-year, and it would be 325 on a 20-year. I might even take it down to 200 if that's all staff says we need to do.
So you basically you're not paying, you're looking at, let's say, 5 million funding.
Yeah,
But you're not going to pull all that out of the bank year one. So,
That's
so
correct.
you're not paying $350,000 in P&I year one. You're paying maybe 150,000.
That's
So
correct.
we're saying over
That's
20
why-
years, it's an average of $50.
That's why it's critical to have
per
that.
AU.
Let me ask one
That's why it's
question.
critical to have
If
that
we
20-year
follow
plan.
that path in 2023, is there going to be another 9%? And in
No,
2024?
no, what'll happen is that you're going to gradually go up to, the minute you spend all that cash to, let's say, 5 million, you're going to be at 325,000 annually paying P&I.
So eventually, though, we'll be at a number greater than this 800. We're trying to keep it to
No.
800 now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
as we, year after year, roll or
Roll
spend the
more
money.
in, it's going to go up.
And recognize also, and Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, jump in, that assessment may be characterized at that point in time as a debt service assessment as opposed to an O&M assessment. Because when you do your validation, you validate.
I only write one check, Tony. I don't.
But-
You can prepay, you validate a cap per benefited unit, per parcel, a dollar amount. Because let's just say you pick $10 million to be the amount you want to validate. Then you base all your assumptions upon that $10 million. Then you do the assessment methodology based upon that. And you assign X number of dollars per ERU cap for the funding of all those improvements if you're going to do it. Then when you do your series of bonds, you'll never exceed the cap.
But there's also opportunity too, because annually, Stephen can correct me here, but I think over the last couple of years, we've had a minimum of about 350 to 4. I mean, it's been upwards of 5 carryover. So again, we could look at carrying over to
Use
pay
retained
off
earnings,
the
yeah.
P&I, so
Yep.
you're offsetting future costs.
Well, and the other one too, Bob, is the deal we just talked about earlier, and that's this building. There could be $300,000, $400,000 that will come in. It's not in here anywhere. It's not in here right now. So those things, just like I found out today, I got to spend about $30,000 on a sidewalk when the attorney says you're going to fix it because you had an accident. I mean, there's things that happen on our utility. Good example, a couple of years ago, with that 16-inch or 12-inch line breaks right in front of Gateway Greens.
Yeah, we're still gonna have those emergency.
We're going to have emergencies.
Surprises.
Well, and I'll throw in something else. So let's say if that P&I is 350,000, part of staff's responsibility is you need to look for cost saves and cost avoidance. 350,000 in our existing contracts. Mainscape's a good place to go for it. Look at other ways to
Well, they got to
offset
manicure it.
So
They gotta work on
that's
it.
the way we should be looking at it, is
Okay.
not incurred cost year over year, but how are we going to fund what we need to fund, and then through good.
Well, what's the
Good
fastest
financial
we can
practice.
get these numbers so we know we're really gonna?
We
throw
need to
out?
get it to Stephen quickly so that he can crunch them and have them back to
Well,
us.
that's why I was looking for continuing this meeting or.
Yeah, or the alternative is, give Stephen time to crunch them and still have the meeting on the 19th, and the board can always continue that meeting. I know they may not want to do that.
It's
board
We're
could.
pushing too
continue
late.
this one.
We need, let's continue this one and. What's,
Is talking to Doug is that he's going to be out next week, but if we could do it virtual, let's say at 5, 6 o'clock on next Thursday.
Well, I tell you what,
You still have to have at least 3 board members here physically.
yeah. So
I'll be
here's
here.
I could do it
I'll
earlier
be
than
here.
that. I
I'll be
leave.
here.
I have no one.
I could do it Monday or Tuesday, possibly.
if staff can get it
That's
ready.
how
by
fast
then.
Steve can get it.
Yeah,
That's the only
that would be a
problem.
quick turnaround.
I just, if Thursday works, is I do it Thursday afternoon, 6 o'clock or something like that.
That'll work for me.
And if the 3 of us can be here,
I'll be here.
but I do not want to do it if he isn't going to be here. Though.
I agree.
I want all of us on this.
It's going to be tough because I got to dinner that night.
You say, unless we do it Wednesday and to see if Stephen.
Well, how about this? Could we push it to the
Morning?
Monday prior to the Thursday meeting?
I'm not comfortable with that only because when you start going past a week, it gives them more
Sounds like another
advertising and
week.
notice, and plus,
Wednesday work better.
next Wednesday.
Tuesday the 10th? You said you would be.
I could do Tuesday.
The only issue I got on that is can Stephen get it done that quick?
Well, for me, it's Tuesday or the following week.
Let's do it
Weekend.
Tuesday and Steven's got to push himself, that's all.
Stephen
Steve,
hasn't
can you
made,
do it?
Yes, I can do it. I do reserve
okay.
the right to ask a question when the date is set based on the expectations. But I can do Tuesday. I'll get it done this weekend. As soon as I get the information from Chris and the staff, I'll get it done and he'll have it by Monday morning.
Yeah, and we can have you that information by lunchtime tomorrow because we're familiar with the implementation schedule and the product. So you're just looking for a
Yeah.
5-year phasing and what we're going to
What
be.
you guys got it worked out with Brian primarily is taking that amount of money that's in that 5 million or 6 million and determining how much of that is actually going to be spent next year so that Stephen can do the P&I calculation on it.
Yeah, and that debt service too, you know, the budget, there's huge increases across the board besides just the debt service.
I know it.
You know, and that's part of the problem. Even though we can reduce that debt service, you know, you can see where that budget is without the debt service with these figures.
Yeah, the part of that is this isn't Daddy's old Cadillac. This is that new assessment methodology. You cannot go the way we used to. You just divide by one number. You have to put these in accounts, Parks Recs admin, stormwater, and roads. Because if it's a huge stormwater deal, there is more of a impact on commercial. If it is a huge admin,
That's by design.
and it's also same way with roads. So when you start shifting these numbers around and you have, let's say originally, I think it was $5 million. If you have 3 or 4 million of that under stormwater management, it has less impact on the residential user than if it were, let's say, over an admin.
Significant on commercial.
So that's the totally different ballgame.
So what time Tuesday?
I'd
3
say we
o'clock,
do the
4
same
o'clock,
time,
5 o'clock?
3 o'clock?
3? Okay.
So at the end of, as we get towards the end of this meeting, there'll be a motion to continue this meeting to August 11th.
Yeah.
You said Tuesday,
Next
10th
Wednesday.
at 3 PM at this location.
All right.
So what time, 3 o'clock on
3
Tuesday?
o'clock on Tuesday.
And I would suggest that the sole topic of that meeting be the budget
Yeah.
and the continuation of budget discussions
Very good.
in anticipation of the budget adoption hearing.
I agree.
All right, moving on to 5A-D, consent
Yeah.
agenda.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a quick question? I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Right ahead.
I just want to make sure both myself and staff understands the expectations. As Mr. Tinkle just mentioned, you know, this is not, you know, like it was in the old methodology where, you know, you back out a number, you divide it by a certain number of EAUs and you're good to go. You know, this has got a lot more to it in terms of categories and, you know, different ways that the assessment works. I think my question is this: after we pull out everything that we're talking about that we can throw into the capital, what is going to be the board's expectations as to what this new amount or the new difference is going to look like? Because if we're, you know, if we're bringing back to you and there's still 20, 30, 40% change, I mean, is that going to be acceptable, or is there a level that you're expecting us to get down to for this next version?
Below 20%, as close to 800 as possible.
Okay. Yep. And again, you can see from the chart that's on there now, you know, depending upon, you know, not everybody's going to be under 800, even if, you know, even like, you know, commercial and stuff. So.
I think that's implied.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
And the lion's share of that, you know, when you look at streetlights and the irrigation system, that's all connected to roads. You know, that portion of the assessment, then it goes into the waterway management, you know, with the stormwater infrastructure. But we have a lot of O&M costs, as they said earlier, the water quality testing going to $50,000, some of the additional maintenance, which is all credited back to the pond standards.
See, that kind of thing there, I think we'd have a hard time fighting on capital. But bathymetric study, bathymetric study is absolutely essential to aeration. So it's capital.
Right.
So it would be like the engineering fees to design the road. It's not only the road is capital, the engineering fees are
Again,
capital.
if Tetra Tech can say that is, it may also be another example like soil borings to do a road. Soil borings for do a road can be part of the cost of a project. So bathymetric testing can be the same.
Yeah, my thing is that I don't want to go out on a limb, and nor do I want any staff or professionals to go out on a limb and say something just to be able to get it 20-year financed. But if it's got a chance,
Go.
go for it.
Correct.
Chris, in regards to trimming, and I guess I should have asked you this before because we may be able, have we received the consulting's recommendations for the littoral pond standards that was due 60 days ago?
Yeah, where is that guy?
Because we may be able to, if he agrees to what we have, then we can trim all those extra items there.
Bob
or-
was just down here the last 2 days. He had COVID, him and his wife, so they were about 3 weeks out. I got him down here this week. He'll have the report by the end of the month.
Who's
I'm gonna-
Bob?
Bob's with ATM. He's a
Okay.
guy with a
Firm we hired.
PhD we hired.
Okay.
But no, he will have that report by the end of August. He just finished it up. Unfortunately, him and his wife got COVID and they were out for like 3 weeks.
Good news is they came back.
Yes. So I apologize, but
It is what it is.
So again, anything to pull on the consent agenda?
I didn't have anything.
No,
Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion.
That's it.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So supervisor comments.
Don't we need a motion to continue the meeting?
right.
Was that
Oh,
made?
we can still do supervisor comments and then we can
And
just.
then we'll do it at the end.
Okay.
So Bobby, I'll start with you.
I did want to, well, I guess many of you guys did not receive, had a chance to read the Stony Brook email in regards to the cost. Because I don't know if Joe is going to be here at the next meeting, so I kind of did want to talk a little bit about it. I was here at the meeting yesterday, and I just really was asking him to just be direct on what he wanted it, meaning like, tell me what your vision is, that doesn't mean we're going to agree, and tell me the reasoning behind it. So I'm just going to line out the 6 items that exactly what I guess they disagree. So when it comes to the district manager position, the 5% that we were asking, they want that to reduce to 0. The assistant district manager, they want
And
that,
that's because they don't need the district managers.
they feel, I'm just
Yeah,
reading it.
Yeah,
The reasoning why, Joe can get into it, because that doesn't mean I agree or disagree.
We're just, do we have this?
yeah.
Uh,
Joe emailed it today.
Oh.
About
Today,
that's what you
so,
were showing.
yeah, so I'm not giving you the reasoning because I think that's not my job. I just want to be for the record. So the district manager position from the 5% reduced to 0. The assistant district manager position from 5% to also 0. The business manager position, they agree that it should stay at the 5% that what we're proposing. The admin assistant, they also agree that 10% there. The receptionist, it's 5%, they want a reduction to a 2%. And Public Works, they agree they should remain at 5. So it's really 3 things. It's sticks with the district manager and assistant manager, they feel that they shouldn't pay for that. And the reception from 5% to 2%. So now if Joe wants to explain that, then that's beyond what.
Yeah, the district manager is going to be involved in that, so he's got to have something. I might agree that it would be lesser than that, but not nothing.
Maybe 2%. And that's if they
Yeah.
still want Chris in attendance in there. Yeah, someone has to attend those.
I don't think that's their decision to make.
Yeah, no.
Well, I actually, I take Pelican, and Brian was blessed with Stony Brook, and he attends their meeting.
Yeah.
Cursed. And really that is because so much is going on. Instead of hearing it in bits and pieces after the meeting, at least you get to hear, you can take direction and
So it sounds
move it
like
together.
it's.
Okay,
it's
well
10%.
then-
So if we add, so really 8% reduction if district manager stayed at 2%. And it's not necessarily district manager, it's staff.
Yeah, but if you're paying at his rate, I mean, if you're
Well,
gonna
that's what
pay,
they bring
if you're
that
gonna pay
2%.
5% of Brian's rate is one thing. If you're gonna pay 5% of his
Well, that's
rate.
what they
is
reduce
different.
at 2%.
Yeah.
And that kind of splits the difference.
We're paying a guy to do this. I'm gonna rely on what Chris says.
Yeah.
They're only paying 1.5% of this anyway, I think. What do they pay?
I don't know what it is.
This is.
Let
this is-
let
this
Chris,
is
let
in
Chris make
addition
the decision
to-
of what the
Is it over
fair
and above
number
01?
is.
Is over and above 01.
Yes,
Because-
over and above.
Because we have ownership and management of facility and property. So this is outside. So this is not what, Hampton Park would pay because we don't own anything.
Got
there.
it, got it. It's different than that.
I mean, I'm okay with the reduction, except district manager, I would just drop that to 2 and I would just call that, maybe just staff, general staff oversight or something along those
That
lines.
means you can delete their emails.
Let Chris come up with that, but I agree. I agree. I think you're in the right ballpark.
I think Mr. Geppert's making sure I'm listening.
So Chris, so whatever, I mean,
Whatever you're comfortable, come back
your
to us
recommendation-
on Tuesday.
would need to be incorporated into
Yes.
Yes.
Stevens' work as well. That's the whole point, I think.
Yeah.
Why you're bringing it up now.
That, it's almost, again, a fly on a you know what. It's so incrementally small, it's unbelievable, but it's principle of the thing.
Yeah, it is principle.
Watch the pennies, you figure the dollar.
Yep.
What else?
Okay.
That's it.
I hesitate to even bring it up. I've been doing some checking around, trying to find an assistant district manager. And what I'm finding is not good. We are compensating our people. We aren't even in the ballpark. District manager position for as equal as you can get for us. We're getting up to 150 to 160. This assistant district manager, you ain't gonna touch at 95. And that may be why the 30 resumes we got are from nobody that knows anything about what the hell they're talking about. They no more are qualified than the man in the middle. We have a reality that we need to be doing some checking on these. I don't really care about what a resident thinks these are. We're in a market that we have to go out and do our job. If they can bring somebody here that's qualified, that'll take this job or take the assistant job for $80,000, I'll show him the pin. You ain't gonna find him. And in fact, they're telling me that they are like finding a needle in a haystack. Chris is going up to a conference and maybe we can do some trolling up there to find somebody, but I say assistant manager and I say district manager. I say this goes down to our next two levels, our key employee positions and the assistant key employee positions. The last thing we need to do is to get in and lose people, because right now people are out there trying to steal.
Well, and I'll tell you too, and again, this is the business that I'm in. We're seeing two things happen. A 30% increase in overall compensation for positions that are open today. That doesn't mean if you're in that role, your pay is the same. But if you leave, if you vacate and go somewhere else, current employers are paying upwards of 30% above current market value. So it's more expensive to bring someone on today than it was last year. Two, it's harder to find those individuals because one, now again, we don't have to worry about relocation, but there's a lot of contributing factors. So what most companies are doing in critical positions is they're bringing people in with the idea that they will ramp up within 6 months to a year. So they are bringing in people that have core functional experience, may not be exactly where they want to be at today, but they're planning for them to ramp up in 6 months to a year. So we're gonna have to either do two things: find the candidate that we want and pay them whatever market value is, which would then create offset our parity within our current organization. So we got to make adjustments. Or two, find someone that has an agreed upon foundational capability.
Not perfect,
but with the understanding that they will grow. I mean, very similar to what, kind of Laura's done as far as getting her CAM and some other things. So I think we could take that similar approach. That would be my recommended approach, because the other way is going to be more expensive. And if we're already talking about sensitivity to that, and I think the value of training someone here is we can train them really in the directions that we feel is most beneficial for our organization.
I agree with all that.
I agree. It's a thin market anyway for that type of role, because if you look at CAMs, DMs and district managers, operation managers, and other CDDs, their backgrounds are, it's all over the place, so.
Well, what separates us from the people I'm talking to is real simple. We have a full meal deal. We got water, we have sewer, we have irrigation, we have storm water. We've got everything.
Has experience in
find somebody that's got all that.
Yeah. So I think that's an ongoing conversation that we should look at. But that's a really good point.
And then continue to work on the 20-year projection for 001 and 400 enterprise.
We got a good start.
Got a good start.
Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay. Bob?
Well, I was disappointed that I missed the notification of the President's Day. How many of us won?
Yeah, we're all there.
Yeah, I think somehow that was.
Okay. Well, maybe what we'll have is, can Georgia send out reminders, not through email, but maybe text or just,
Well, we've got a schedule. If I have a schedule, I'll put it on my calendar. But I missed that. I was looking at one more. Because, we strengthen and nurture that organization. So
Yeah.
So that was the first thing. The budget process is obviously the biggest thing we got to do. Can't wait to do it. From the ponds perspective and the pond banks, I did not view any in the last 2 weeks. But we need to have schedule a workshop for that particular topic and pond bank replacement at sometime in the near future so we can really set direction of where we're going to go and deal with the political issues of however we decide that. That's it.
And back to you.
Yeah, Tony, this one's for you. You don't live here. So you, unless you might hear the jungle drums. People here are livid over the issue of perhaps what there's a misunderstanding. And if it's not a misunderstanding and it's factual, then we need to indicate to them why it is factual. If we go and spend money on that park, why does it get accessed by anybody other than those in this community that pay for it? What's the statute? What's the
No,
reason?
it's a public facility. The district, because as a public facility, it can be open to the public, but the board can adopt a rate differential. You
Why
can
does it
adopt-
have, people are asking me, they don't pay for it? Why do they get to
Well,
use
they would
it?
be paying for it through a membership fee. The board can set, and typically I think it's 2.5 to 3.5%, like the assessments that are, you can have like $1,000 membership fee to join, to be able to use that. I mean, that's
I
ways
think the
to.
question is, why does it have to be
It's-
public?
it's
Why does
public-
that? Yeah.
It's owned by a public entity. The
Okay.
So I can go to any place else that's public and they got to let me in.
Well, you may have to pay. Here's an example. And I'm not suggesting this happened here. Key Marco is a CDD. It's used to be called, it's HORR, S, Horrors Island. It's Key Marco is down Marco Island and the district roads there, they're district roads and there's a gatehouse. That board adopted a rate to pay, where non-residents have to pay to go through the gates, like $10 for a single family, for a dual axle car. They came up with the approach of, okay, it's a public road, it has to be kept open because it is a public road, but we can regulate access and people who are not living here can pay for it like they pay for a recreational facility. So they hired Hank Fishkind, he did an analysis, said, here's the rate schedule, here's what y'all pay. That's how you can control it, how you regulate it.
So, and
But that's important. I mean, once again,
So it's public, but it requires membership. And-
Yes, and you
and
can
if
set
you're
rules.
living gateway, you
believe
have
me,
access. If you're non, you can pay. for
and
membership,
I've talked to
which is X amount.
other parties have done it where they provide
See,
priority.
see what that does is that just takes the operation and maintenance, it just blows it through the roof because now we have to have a person down there taking checks as they come in.
No,
and cash.
no. And once again, it's a member, you can say, you have to be a member in order to participate.
So it's not a user fee, it's a membership
It's
fee.
a user
Yeah,
fee,
not a
membership
per,
fee.
not a per visit. Like literally, if you want to come here and you don't live in Gateway, you have to become a member. An
All
annual
right.
membership,
Well,
which is
here's-
$10,000.
Once again, okay, once again, I've not done any of this,
That's
I've
where I was
talked to other attorneys or managers that have done this in the past. What I would suggest is that we get an example of some of those for some other communities.
Well, my
They
thought
have
is
these
if I bring
facilities.
in somebody from out of town and a membership fee is $1,000, we ain't gonna be going there to the park.
There might be,
Well,
there might be a guest
You'd
fee
be a
for,
guest of a member.
once again, that level of detail, I can
Upwards of-
look. I
So,
can-
so the bottom line is the statute that I can say to
It's not
the
statute,
people,
just
the
Florida law.
statute says it's Florida law.
It's under Florida law.
Don't have any choice.
It's a public facility,
Because we are a public entity.
but the district can,
I understand all that. My deal is that if I can see that the people who pay for that deal will have the benefit, but if you don't, no ticky, no laundry.
No.
You don't pay, you don't get in.
and that's the idea.
And what you're saying is
you-
that's the fee.
You can say, you said a membership schedule, a membership program. If you want is there a daily,
We need
weekly
to make sure they
membership
understand
program?
it, because a lot of people think they're spending money just for the pleasure of across the street coming
No,
over here.
no, the difference with the soccer fields is different because we have that agreement with Lee County.
That's a different deal.
But that's, that's a little more constraints on what can be done.
Okay.
What I can do is gather up some information from some other districts that have recreational facilities and what they charge for out of community people to join. How's that? And just give an example.
And Tony, may I ask too, so was that the impetus for having a resident, non-resident fee for the dog park?
That was one aspect of it.
Right, okay. So
Once
I always
again,
wondered, I was like, let's just not have non-residents because there's enough people there that are residents that it's crowded. Why do we even have non-residents? But so we can't have a no non-resident.
correct. But you can have a rate differential.
Makes sense.
Oh, no, hold it. I'm not talking rate differential,
No, but-
because I was assuming that there wouldn't be a
And
rate
what-
for the
no, and
owners.
and What I mean,
Yeah,
by
the
that,
differential would be nothing versus something.
Okay,
the
gotcha.
residents are paying for it through their assessments. Okay, so
That makes sense.
So at this
I'm-
point, it'd be $800.
it could be a thousand.
So, Bill, I'm not sure if you're on. I just want to give you the opportunity. If you are, I don't see you, but okay. I'll just kind of close with, look, I think we walked into this budgeting exercise knowing that we were going to put, and we were going to put all of our priorities on the table for transparency to the residents. We knew there would be backlash, and I think it served its purpose with raising awareness. I don't still believe that people understand that the things that we have in this budget are things that have to be done. However we got here, it doesn't matter. But that we would do everything in our power to come up with creative funding or financing to get it within reason. And I think I'm happy of where we landed today. I'm curious to see where it's actually going to land. If our theories are going to land where we want them to. But again, I just applaud all of us in sticking to our guns and saying, these are things we need to do. The residents need to be aware of it, and we will get it palatable at some point.
Well, this is a lesson in the cost of money. It is a lesson in the cost of money. How much that bond means and impacts that rate. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I will just say too, it's not just something like, that this board didn't know about it or whatever. I mean, literally for the past 5 or 6 years, I think the board the board had been working on getting to a point where we have, procedures in place that we're doing maintenance. I think, Chris and his staff have done a really good job of, addressing issues. I mean, again, if you look at Stony Brook, if we had a hurricane this year, we wouldn't come anywhere close to where we were with Irma because the staff addressed issues and we've gone critical, we've addressed critical items year over year. Now we're just at a point where we got a big list of things that just have to get done. So, I just applaud our efforts, and I still think that what most residents don't understand is these are things that have to be done. And if your irrigation, I'm not trying to be condescending because I understand where people are coming from, and I don't want to come across like that. But if you go to turn on your irrigation, it doesn't work because we don't fix the things we need to fix because we're trying to stay within a dollar amount, we'd have 3 times more people in here, 4 times more people. I think a lot of people get it,
I
but a lot of
agree.
people don't.
If they don't see it, and a lot of it, like the residents that have come up to me and they're like, well, why do we need this to clean the sewer? I was like, because they don't see it. I mean, if you don't see it, then you don't think nothing's wrong with it. But like to Ed's point, if you're gonna see it, it's gonna cost you twice as much because it's gonna be ugly.
Yeah,
And since you mentioned Stony Brook, actually natural resources is another one, because I didn't know, because they want a reduction to 0 too, because I guess they don't have anything there that needs natural resources. So, well, that is outside of the 001. They understand for the 001, not the 01.
Well, and 2, when people go to buy a house, the first question that you don't hear from a buyer is, tell me about your utilities infrastructure. How well is your flowway system? You don't hear about that stuff, but they do look at.
They may be hearing about that in
But
Daniels
they do look at
Preserve.
your landscape and they look at what amenities you have. They look at different things. of
Well, like that
nature. So,
gentleman said, he came from a CDD, he was paying $1,200, and I'm thinking, okay, that's in line what we're gonna pay now, and that was 15 years ago. You're paying $1,200.
Right.
So, but I was like, I'm just.
Yeah.
We don't have to look that far, guys. Look to his.
Yeah. Well, but they get stuff done over there, and they understand why.
As long as you don't mind paying $4,700 a year, that's what we pay.
Well,
Without HOA,
so again, I appreciate all the due diligence, and we'll see where we land next week.
I didn't know.
Are we gonna make a motion for Tuesday?
Motion to continue.
I'll make a motion to continue this meeting on the next August 11th, 3.
No,
That's what I wanted to make sure stated when.
it's August 10th. It's
August-
Tuesday,
August
right?
10th.
August 10th,
August
Tuesday,
3 p.m.
3 p.m.
3 p.m.
here.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Nice work.
Okay.
Only went over by a little bit.